What's going on, fellow A-Plusers? It's your boy, Adam Perez. We're back once again with a brand new episode of A-Plus Hero Report, your weekly stop for your Marvel, DC, television, and movie news, streaming for you live today over on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and Twitter for you guys. We got 6 amazing topics we're going to be diving into today as we say farewell to one Star Wars television series. We're set to go ahead and get into another as we got some brand new details and images from Skeleton Crew set to go ahead and drop later on this year. We've got more information for you guys in regards to Robert Downey Jr.'s return as Dr. Doom in the MCU. We're also going to get into some updates for the DCU Green Lanterns television series and a ton more, guys. Your live viewer questions, we're definitely going to go ahead and get into them. So we'll see you on the other side. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, or good morning, wherever you are at. Actually, it's 11 a.m. here in good old Dallas, Texas. It's fantastic to see everybody today. Welcome to a brand new episode of A-Plus Hero Report, where we wrap up your weekend. What's up, Stu? Good to see you, man. How you doing, buddy? Good morning. It's pretty early over there where you are in the Bay Area, but how's your morning kicking off so far?
So far, kicking off pretty good. Just finished some coffee, and yeah, I'm ready to go. It's been quite the week with Deadpool and Wolverine, as you can imagine. It's doing really good at the box office, and then we just got the new movie this weekend, DD, which is also off to a pretty good start.
What movie?
It's called DD. Basically, just it's a coming of age like movie about like kind of a young kid who does like YouTube videos, but yeah, it's just kind of him growing up in 2008.
Okay,
Yeah.
I don't think I've heard that one before. I'm gonna have to check that one out, see if there's a trailer out there for it. Speaking of Deadpool and Wolverine, I don't know what the box office is looking like right now, but I think it passed like 700 million worldwide already, something outrageous. I wouldn't be surprised if it definitely feels like it's going to be $1 billion film if it stays on this trajectory within the next couple of weeks or so. I literally just got the opportunity to watch it this week. I watched it Thursday or Friday night, I can't remember, so I was a little bit of a week late getting to it, but I finally watched it. If anything, we probably will be dropping a report card for it later on today or tomorrow to give you guys our thoughts, or at least our consensus report, a card on Deadpool and Wolverine. And maybe I don't know what your schedule is looking like, Stuart. Maybe we can do like a spoiler review or something like that on Deadpool and Wolverine this week. But we'll let you guys know. I got to figure out what Stuart's schedule is looking like.
Yeah, I'd definitely be down.
How did you like the movie?
Oh, overall, so I really enjoyed it. Overall, I will be honest to say that it is my least favorite of the Deadpool movies. But that being said, as a really fun team up movie between Deadpool and Wolverine, it works. I think Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds had such amazing chemistry. The action was great. The jokes were funny. Gives you everything that you want and everything you expect from a Deadpool movie. Also, yes, I think the cameos were hilarious, great, and most of the time didn't see them coming. Luckily, because I did a good job of staying away from spoilers. But yeah, I think the way the cameos were utilized was actually pretty creative.
I will say I did my best to try and stay spoiler free, but for the most part, no, I think I got spoiled by a little bit by almost everything by the time I got the opportunity to see it.
Oh,
so
no.
yeah, it did. I don't necessarily know if a lot of the cameos had the same impact on me that I really would have liked it to have, and I do think it overall might have messed up my enjoyment of the movie. You know, like I did enjoy the film. I had a fun time with it, but I have a feeling had I gone into it completely blind, I probably would have loved it. I didn't love this movie. I just like you, I enjoyed it, and I really enjoyed it type of thing. But it's not I'm not on the top of the mountaintops like best MCU film ever. like I don't know if I personally walked away thinking to myself Deadpool and Wolverine saved the Marvel Studios, if people want to say Marvel needs some saving, but I enjoyed it for what it was, for sure. It was
Yeah.
It was a fun time.
I don't think it saved the MCU, but it gave them some money, so there's that.
Yeah, absolutely, man. This movie is kicking ass at the box office, making some big numbers. You know who else is making big numbers? We'll talk about it here in just a little bit. Inside Out 2 officially crossed $1 billion, which is kind of crazy at the box office. So that's one that I definitely want to go ahead and certainly check out for myself. But we'll see. I'll talk with Stuart a little bit more towards the end of the episode and see if we can maybe do like a live review tomorrow night for you guys for Deadpool and Wolverine if you guys want a spoiler review. So let us know in the comment section box below and we'll talk a little bit more about it. Let's give some love to some people that are in our live chat today. And look, if you're watching us live, wherever you're watching us from, hit that like button, man. It really helps the algorithm, helps bring other people's attention to our channels. Share these videos, retweet them wherever you're watching it from. But let's give some people some love that are watching us live today. Enrique, he says, hey, Adam, just saw all the episodes of Batman Cape Crusader with a new opening intro of the series. I think Ram Jam is here too. He says he finished the first episode of Batman Cape Crusader. I finished the first episode of Batman Cape Crusader last night too, Stuart, and I had a effing blast with it, man. Have you got the opportunity to watch the series yet?
Not yet, but I definitely plan to on Monday.
Bold, fresh start for Batman Cape Crusader. I'm just gonna say that. Bruce Timm comes out of the gate swinging, and I love the originality and just the freshness that I think some of his bold decisions really made this series feel like. Any issue that I think you and I talked about Hamish, the voice actor for Batman, completely wiped away. He sounds great as Batman. I love his approach to Bruce Wayne in here specifically. It's almost like night and day. And I'm a really big fan of some of the creative decisions that he wound up making in here. So yeah, I can't wait to go ahead and finish it. I think myself, and believe it or not, I think our WrestleManiacs podcast host Josh Porosky, he's hit me up twice asking like, hey Adam, do you have anybody that's going to review the Batman animated series? And I'm like, I don't know, but I was like, nobody's asked to do it. I was like, I've been thinking about doing it myself. And he was like, can I join you? Because I really want to talk about it. He's like, I'm a huge Batman animated series fan. I've played all the video games. He's like, I absolutely love Batman as a whole. He says, I kind of want to talk about the series. And so I was like, okay. So I think him and I may do a series review later on this week. If you want to join us, Stuart, you're certainly more than welcome to. The more the merrier. I told him to try and finish it by Monday night or Tuesday night, because I would like to try and do something Tuesday if possible. But I'll get with you and see if you're interested in joining.
Yeah, if I finish it Monday, I'll definitely let you know.
But yeah, if you guys have had the opportunity to check out Batman Cape Crusader, please let us know your thoughts, what you thought about the first couple episodes for sure. Tales of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is just days away on Friday. That's crazy. That drops on Friday. I got to see what's coming out content-wise. There's a bunch of television shows and movies that are dropping here in September and August. I might have to see if we can assign some weekly shows or to you and me. Now that the Star Wars The Acolyte is done, I might need to pick up another show to kind of review now. Enrique, D23 is almost here also. Reveals for upcoming movies and series this week. I think it's like next weekend, if I'm mistaken. Can you look up when D23 is, Stuart? I may end up having another busy weekend, man, from one convention to another, bro. This is constant. Something tells me it's like this weekend or in the following weekend. Enrique also says finally Nickelodeon is going to air the first Sonic the Hedgehog film on Friday before the Knuckles series premieres on television Monday, August 12th. Oh, that's pretty smart. I like that back to back. Blossom, what's up, Blossom? It's good to see you in here. Thank you so much for certainly joining us today.
It is from the 9th to the 11th of this month.
God, that's this weekend, bro. That's this weekend. I might have to clear my schedule and make sure, but like, babe, we're not doing anything this weekend. Because I'm pretty sure I expect Marvel to certainly have a big panel. I definitely expect Lucasfilm to have a big panel. And I would be kind of curious to see what other sort of original television series Disney Plus plans on dropping. So, guys, if you want to be caught up to date on D23 Fan Expo this weekend, beginning Friday the 9th through the 11th, tune in, man. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'll probably do some individual videos, maybe a recap at the end of each day. Who knows? But we'll definitely keep you guys posted. Ram Jam in the house. I think we said hello to Sam already. Sam said it was awesome. Deadpool and Wolverine last night I went to see. I'm glad you enjoyed it, man. Blossom also. What's up, L'Oreal? Coming through from Facebook today. Who else we got? Sam says the Adventures of Batman from 1968 was all right, but I prefer the 66 live action.
The Adam West Batman.
Yeah, it's always a classic for sure. All right, guys, thank you so much for all your comments. Look, feel free to interject at any time. If you hear anything, want to jump in on a conversation, give us your opinions and point of view of some of the topics that we're talking about. At the end of the day, these are always simply our A+ opinions, but we definitely always want to know yours. So always feel free to certainly chime in. And if you want to support the channel monetarily, feel free to go ahead and submit over a super chat for us. We don't have any sponsors or anything like that, so we really do grow with your support from this channel. If you submit a super chat, we'll definitely stop what we're doing. We'll bring you up on screen. We'll certainly celebrate you and what you've provided for the channel. If you can't, that's more than fine too. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, retweet, share these videos. You can definitely help us out that way as well. But let's go ahead and get into our first segment of the day. And we're going to get into our honorable mentions segment. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, for honorable mentions, pretty much topics that we felt didn't quite make the cut for our 6 main topics, but certainly felt that you deserve to know about it. So let's see what honorable mentions we might have today. Stu, you got any for us, man?
Not in terms of news, but just in terms of things that I've slept on and that I have not realized. Oh my gosh! So there's a show on Netflix that has been around for over a year now, but I've only just now watched it, and it's one of the coolest animes I think I have ever seen. So that's going to be my honorable mention. Is talking about this show real quick, which is called The Blue Eye Samurai. And it's basically a really awesome revenge tale, very much styled similarly to Akira Kurosawa's like samurai films. What's great is some of the fight scenes are actually like filmed and then like kind of traced over using 3D animation models, so it's like actual like physics of people fighting, and it's absolutely amazing. I don't want to say too much of the story because I don't want to spoil much, but I just want to say that like you definitely go into the first episode thinking you know the main character, but then as the episodes go on, you learn more and more about her backstory, and by the end of it, you kind of you start to realize, oh, so she's not necessarily like a hero by the end of it. But it, still a very awesome protagonist, and that you want to root for her to kind of like become a more of an actual like heroic kind of samurai by the end. And there are going to be multiple seasons, so I'm definitely rooting for this show to keep going, and hopefully it doesn't fall under like other shows on Netflix that are successful where they just kind of like cancel it because it's too expensive. I hope the show keeps going.
Yeah, I do remember us highlighting it here on Hero Report. Brand new posters that might have dropped, maybe even a trailer here or two. I never had the opportunity to check it out when it was first released, but I did hear a ton of great things about it. It might actually still be on my watch list on my Netflix account, because I did mean to check it out when we were first originally talked about it. So I'm glad you wanted to bring it back up. It was a great reminder for me that I need to certainly check that out. I think Cobra Kai also released the first part.
Yeah.
I still haven't even gotten to watching that as of yet. I think if anything, maybe we'll finish off House of the Dragon, and then I'll probably me and the girlfriend will probably dive into checking out Cobra Kai while I'm watching a little bit of Batman Cape Crusader. I think those are probably going to be the next 2 things that I tackle real quick before I start my rewatch for The Rings of Power, because season 2 is set to drop August 29th, and I'm really excited to go ahead and check it out. And you know what, Stuart? Yesterday, side quest mission here. I went to play pickleball for the very first time yesterday. My girlfriend and her friends, my girlfriend's friends invited us to go play pickleball yesterday. Really cool. It's like tennis for people that can't play tennis. Like if you're horrible at tennis, the pickleball is probably your sport. It reminds me of like a mixture of like like ping pong and tennis. It's just like a shrunken tennis court with like a wiffle ball almost. It's pretty fun. So anyway, while we were talking, me and her friends were talking yesterday, and I found one of my first supporters of somebody that loved the Rings of Power season 1 yesterday, and boy did we gush about it yesterday. I'm like, see, this is why I have to live off of social media, because there are actually people in the real world that enjoy this stuff and not just all the hatred I get on Twitter all the time for these type of shows. So it was just really eye-opening to just be like, yeah, you know, you go outside, you touch grass, you breathe air, you meet people, and people actually enjoy other things too. But so yeah, I just wanted to bring that up, that there was at least one fan of the Rings of Power season 1 out there somewhere.
That's awesome. Yeah, I might actually follow you in your footsteps there, because I also feel like I really need a refresher for Rings of Power going into season 2. Also with Game of Thrones, I forgot, it's tonight the season finale. Oh boy,
Yeah, I'm excited. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm sure the girlfriend's gonna come home from work and be like, "Babe, we're watching it." So
I got to be honest. My
get.
fiance and I were not a fan of Rhaenyra's
Plan.
or no the relationship she kind of formed with what's her face. Like I thought they had like a really awesome partnership going on, and then when it suddenly turned to romance, both of us were like, oh, why?
Yeah, it feels odd in the sense, like I would agree with you. I really enjoyed their friendship. Like I really liked their bond and what they had kind of been growing. I don't necessarily know if they needed to go the romantic route, but I don't really know how the story itself is fully going to kind of play out. But Rhaenyra's always been um there's no restraining Rhaenyra, it feels like. She's always been her own woman for sure. Like just looking at her past, especially when she was younger and she had that incident with the was it Sir Kristen, you know, and then Damon and stuff, right? So like there's a part of me that's like, this feels very this just feels like her for sure, something she would do.
Yeah, I
It
could
fits true to
definitely
her
see that.
character, you know. So, but yeah, I rather just am stuck it as a friendship sort of thing.
Yeah.
Um, a couple other honorable mentions here. We had a couple of projects actually wrap filming this week, believe it or not. So I'm going to go down a list of projects to look forward to that have officially finished wrapping their filming and are now going into post-production. So first we had Welcome to Derry, the upcoming It prequel series that wind up finishing up its filming. We also had let's see here. There was another one. There was a couple more. 28 Years Later has officially wrapped filming as well. That upcoming Cillian Murphy zombie movie once again. That's going to be kicking off. I don't know how big of a role Cillian Murphy certainly has to play, but I know he's certainly going to be in there. But so Welcome to Derry has wrapped. We all also Superman, believe it or not, James Gunn's Superman has finally wrapped production. And you know what's crazy, Stuart? Even though Superman has wrapped production and it's set to go ahead and release next year, going into post production, Fantastic Four literally just started filming.
And they're coming out around the same time, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm really bewildered as to like how are they gonna pull this off? I mean, I know it doesn't take a full year to film, but I'm just thinking of like post-production work, unless they've already kind of started the post-production stuff like super early already. I am kind of curious to see how this is gonna turn out, to be quite honest with you.
I know that for some older Marvel projects, I don't know if they still do this. I mean, they may not, and that might be why the quality of CG has gone down. But for some of their movies, they would do the CG like years in advance. Like
Uh,
Endgame, for example, that whole final battle, it was almost like, you know, ready to go like basically the year before, because they started working on it. I want to say like probably the beginning of phase like 2 or something. So
oh,
so that's how they used to do it. But then I assume because they're producing so many movies, they're expecting like the same results, but with like, faster, but just somehow faster, which is impossible. So I hope that does not happen to Fantastic Four. That's kind of like the worry,
Yeah.
is I'm getting Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness vibes from that.
Vibe from it. Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
I hope they plan this a little bit better. But yeah, those are some of the projects that wind up wrapping here this week. We also have an update for Scream 7. Nev Campbell came out this week and talked to Entertainment Online. Talks about it being her swan song, and that Scream 7 will actually focus on her main character here. Let's see here. It says we're going to follow Sydney, is what she says, Sydney Prescott. Adding that the idea is in the same vein as Jamie Lee Curtis's return to the Halloween franchise. They did pitch the concept to me, and it's the reason that I jumped on board. She says, I love these movies. They're so much fun to be a part of, and I'm so grateful for them. I could never have imagined being a part of a movie that would have lasted this many decades. She says she has admitted she has not received a final script as of just yet, but is hoping to receive it hopefully later on this week. So yeah, so it looks like this may be her swan song in the sense of her return, and maybe final movie, who knows. But Nev Campbell returning for Scream 7 that will focus on Sydney Prescott. It does make me wonder if that was always the plan to begin with or not, Stuart. Because if you do remember, they had some drama about the departure of some of the characters from Scream 5 and 6 wind up leaving, and I think Jenna Ortega wasn't set to return too. So I do wonder if like that was the plan all along, or if they had to call an audible and come up with another storyline for it. But yeah, it definitely will be Sydney Prescott heavy for sure.
Yeah, no, I think this wasn't the plan, because if you watch like 5 and 6, there's kind of a little bit of room open for where they could have taken the two sisters with Tara and Sam, where they could have taken their backstory. And because there was this whole hint basically that their mother was kind of an asshole, and it made me think that that actually would have been the perfect like final killer for them for like a Scream 7 movie. And I feel like that's what they were building up to, but since now neither of them are going to be coming back in Scream 7, I think that's why they decided to completely shift focus back to Sydney.
That would make sense. That would make a lot of sense. Shout out to Marcelino here. He says Death Battle is now independent. Their Kickstarter has raised enough money to make several Death Battles, and I am excited for the future. Very nice. Last, well, not last honorable mention, but we do have an update in regards to Battlestar Galactica reboot. I think we talked about this a couple of years ago, that they were set to go ahead and reboot the Battlestar Galactica series. Well, according to Variety, it is no longer in the works at Peacock. It says the long gestating reboot of Battlestar Galactica is no longer in development there. The project was first announced back in 2019. It was never formally ordered to series, though, and has been in development ever since. Exact story details never emerged, but the show is said to be in the same continuity as the 2003 Battlestar Galactica series. I don't know if it's something that they're going to probably... Yeah, it says, according to an individual knowledge of the situation, they will shop the project to other outlets. So while it's certainly dead at Peacock without really kind of getting off the ground, again, they said no story details were ever emerged from it. So who knows how far into production. So is there a possibility we could get ourselves a Battlestar Galactica reboot eventually down the line? Yes, absolutely. But as of right now, certainly not at Peacock, as it looks for possibly another home. I know you said you hadn't seen the Battlestar Galactica stuff, right, Stuart?
Yeah, that is correct.
Always one that I'm never going to go ahead and rewatch this. I just know this is so much content that I want to rewatch, even though it deserves a rewatch for sure. I would recommend it if you ever get the chance to. Sam says it's a shame really for the reboot. So we know what they planning for new one, maybe a film, maybe they move that direction. And we kind of talked about this at the top. Inside Out, actually, not only has it made $1 billion, Stuart, it's made $1.52 billion globally.
Damn.
And believe it or not, it has now cracked the top 10 highest grossing movies of all time. It just knocked off the Avengers at $1.521 billion. It knocked the Avengers out of the top 10 spot, and it now sits at number 10 at $1.524 billion. So Inside Out 2 is now officially in the top 10 highest grossing movies of all time, believe it or not.
Wow. You know what this isn't going to happen, but you know what I want to see for Inside Out 3?
What do you want to see?
I want to see Riley in college and her experimenting with drugs, and we get to see how the different emotions react to the different drugs.
We'll have like an ecstasy emotion that like pops up in Inside Out 3. I love it. A Coke
like,
Monster.
Does it make all the emotions suddenly like on ecstasy as well? Do we see other emotions, like those emotions react differently to Riley's emotions to indicate every brain is different in the way it reacts to drugs?
Don't steal our pitch, Pixar. Don't steal it. Don't steal it.
Actually, please steal it. I have no plans to write this. I want to see it. So you know what? Please steal that pitch, Pixar.
Oh man. But yeah, guys, that will do it. Toy Story 5 is coming soon. Very nice. Very nice. Thank you, Sam, for that. But yeah, guys, that will do it for our honorable mention segment of the show. So yeah, it's just some things we thought you should know about before we get into our main topics today. Let me get a swig of this coffee here real quick, man, and then we're gonna be off on the road, bro.
Awesome.
All right, let's get into these main topics, shall we?
For sure.
Stuart, you know what? I'm gonna be honest. I kind of miss talking to Acolyte with you, buddy. I sit in remembrance. I go down memory lane, and I go through a lot of our little reels and shorts that we cut, and I'm thinking, man, you know what I want to talk about? More Star Wars. And that's exactly what we're gonna do today, man, because once this series of the Acolyte has officially wrapped up, it is now looking to the future, baby, for our next Star Wars project. Although, believe it or not, I am hearing some rumors that Andor Season 2 may actually drop this month, which would be a little bit crazy to me.
Without a trailer?
Yeah, I haven't seen a trailer or anything like that. Maybe in September. I'm assuming that those are just rumors. Please take that with a grain of salt, because I have not heard anything about Andor Season 2 dropping this particular early without any sort of level of marketing, if you will, like we're about to get into for Skeleton Crew, because Skeleton Crew is dropping this year. We did have ourselves our first promotional look at Skeleton Crew a week or two ago with the reveal of this brand new poster, definitely giving me sort of Amblin studio vibes and Goonie vibes here. Looks like it's going to be a pretty fun adventure, to certainly say the least. But let's go ahead and get into it. We had a huge article come out from People Magazine that had the opportunity to not only talk to Jude Law, but also some of the showrunners for this upcoming series, giving us brand new details along with fresh new images for Skeleton Crew. So let's go ahead and start getting hyped for what the next project is going to be, Stuart. I'm going to go ahead and bring this up again. This comes to us from People Magazine. And we got some images for you guys, too, that we're going to go ahead and bring up so you guys can get a better idea of what the series is certainly going to look like. I've been highly anticipating finally getting some more details about this. You know what's funny, Stuart? I think, was it last week or the week before, we finally, even though this news has been out for like the past year, we just now found out that Jude Law is actually playing a Jedi in this. I had absolutely no idea, but they revealed that piece of news and information, I think maybe back at Star Wars Celebration London or shortly after that. So it's been out there, but I don't know if a lot of people realize that. But according to People Magazine, it says Jude Law teases childhood adventure and Star Wars Easter eggs in Skeleton Crew series. See the first look. So while we're going through this, I might just go ahead and pull up some of these images for you guys. So let's go ahead and read this, Stu. It says Jude Law has officially joined the famed intergalactic universe with Star Wars Skeleton Crew. It says in the exclusive first look at the latest edition in the iconic franchise, the actor, who's currently 51, takes on the role of Jod Nawud. What a name. or is that
Jod
Joe?
Na no now
Or
would.
is that Jode? No, I think that's Jod. Jod. I think that's Jod. Jod Na Nawwood. In a new coming of age series. He says, or according to the synopsis, it says when four kids make a mysterious discovery on their seemingly safe home planet, they get lost in a strange and dangerous galaxy. Finding their way home, meeting unlikely allies and enemies will be a greater adventure than they ever imagined. And I think we have a look at most of the kids here in this image as well. It says, in addition to Law, we got child actors Ravi Cabot Conyers, who plays the character Wim. We got Kiriana Crater, who plays the character KB. Robert Timothy Smith, who plays Neil. And Ryan Kira Armstrong, who plays Fern, will also star in the new series. When asked about what Star Wars fans can expect in the latest edition of the cinematic universe, Law tells people that the first word that comes to my mind, he says, is joyful. He always explained that viewers will watch the kids maneuver through places where they shouldn't be, and adds that seeing children in that environment in Star Wars universe is thrilling and very, very unique. He says it is a fun place to be, the universe of Star Wars, he adds with a smile. And there are great references to old films and recent episodes and series. There's a lot of originality, and I hope that will bring the feeling of fun to those who are watching it. And we got some other images here for you guys too. It says Law tells people that he and his younger cast members are all in a constant state of confusion and jeopardy and challenge. He adds that the series is very much a piece about working together and overcoming fears and overcoming perhaps one's opinion of oneself or one's own weaknesses in order to succeed. He says, I had a wonderful time making this with everyone involved. These four in particular who worked with me very closely were great fun and incredibly professional, and I'm immensely proud to be a part of this crew. Anything stand out to you as of yet, Stu? I can keep going.
Something I just love with this image alone is they use, of course, the hover bikes from Return of the Jedi, or like a similar design to those. But I like how it's that, but it's mixed with like what you would normally see from just a regular bicycle that kids would ride. Like there's the basket in the back, and then I like how the handlebars they have. What do you call it?
Like the flares.
Yeah, the little flares on the handlebars. It's like it's really cool. It just adds like more depth, I think, to the Star Wars universe. Seeing like how do children play in the Star Wars universe? This gives us an idea.
We also had series creator John Watts from the Spider-Man trilogy and Christopher Ford share the sentiments and open up about the tight-knit bond that Law formed with the kids on set. Let me pull up another image here. He says, because he's with the kids all the time, he's also kind of felt like the co-director, co-producer with us, and he's co-acting coach, giving the kids tips, and they would look at him. He really became sort of a mentor figure to the kids as well. And he didn't have to do that. He just did that because it was nice, and it would make things work great. It says Watts also revealed that the series will introduce a new droid named SM-33, who will this is an exclusive, will be voiced by Nick Frost of all people. So Nick Frost joins the crew for Skeleton Crew here in the Star Wars universe. I don't know if Nick Frost has voiced anything for Star Wars before. That's Simon Pegg's buddy from Shaun of the Dead, isn't it? Nick Frost, right?
It is indeed. That's awesome because he has done some. I don't know if he's voice acted on Star Wars before, but he has done some voice acting in the past, and he's pretty good. So I'm looking forward to him voicing a droid. That's awesome.
Yeah, the idea of Nick Frost bringing a droid to life just sounds hilarious to me. So I'm really looking forward to it. He's like a rusty old cranky droid that sort of reluctantly helps the kids along the way. He noting how fun and absolutely perfect Frost's contributions are. He adds the other things about him is that he's the first mate of a mysterious ship. Not only are the inclusions of droids in any Star Wars project crucial, Law also says that versatile robots are an inspiration to work with. He says, of course, you were expecting to work with droids and alien species, but you forget that they're brought to life in front of you by these extraordinary people who have skills, whether it's puppets or an animatronic expert. You're surrounded by them because they're as much part of the cast as those who are flesh and blood. So I'm really going to emphasize, I think, a couple things. One, that this droid will have great movement in front of the cast and crew, which I think, as an actor, especially for a child actor, probably allows your imagination to run a little bit more wild, to kind of be able to work opposite somebody that's being a puppeteer, or making this robot sort of move right in front of you. But also just getting the opportunity to see a character like this alien right here. I believe this is Neil, if I'm not mistaken. I'll look it up in the People Magazine article again. But the elephant looking one, with the trunk and the ears, like, I'm sure there's probably an animatronic puppeteer back there working the eyelids and blinking and moving the nose around and the ears and stuff, right? Like, I'm sure there's probably somebody actually under this helmet and this mask, but I'm sure there's probably also somebody that's making these features kind of come to life. And I think, for me, the animatronics and some of the robots that in the alien species that we're going to see, I think they're really going to nail it. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, something I love with the Star Wars shows that we've been getting a lot of is a lot of really good practical effects, especially when it comes to the costumes.
Hmm.
And yeah, looking at his whole costume, like, I love that they didn't they decided not to go the route of CG, and I love that it looks like it functions in the sense of, like, not only is it a mask that you can wear over your head, but it seems to be connected to electronics, so it can blink, it can move its ears and its nose. Like, I love that.
We also have another image here. Watt and Ford also say that the hover bikes was integral to telling the story of childhood adventure, not only for the audience tuning in, but also for the child actors involved. They had like little bikes, and that they were on rails. And so they'd like to slide back and forth and left and right so they can turn and bank. He says guys in full green screen suits helping out in the background. He says, in reality, it looks completely insane. And for the kids, the main direction was stop smiling, because because they were having so much fun. Among the many things audiences have to look forward to in the new series is that Jude Law's character, Jod, is someone who uses quick thinking, charm, and conversation to get out of all sorts of scenarios. He also adds that eagle-eyed Star Wars fans will be able to spot details that pay homage to the original films. He says, if you look carefully, we got some Star Wars tech that dates right back, I believe, to the original films. They do Easter eggs as well. That's one of the joys, I think, this universe, for those who know there are these little details always hidden away, or Easter eggs that people can find and sort of link up. Um, I will say, now that we know, Stuart, that Jude Law's character Jod was once a Jedi. This also does take place during the New Republic era, so this is a few years right after the fall of the Empire. This really takes place during the same time period as, say, the Mandalorian. And if Jod has had to sort of keep his Force abilities a secret, how does one survive? And so, to describe his character as someone who uses quick thinking, charm, and conversation to get out of all sorts of scenarios, that kind of feels pretty fitting as to how a Jedi would try and do their best to survive during that time period.
Oh yeah. It's a similar, little bit of a different direction, but similar to the main character from Jedi Fallen Order, where it's
Yes.
like Jude Law seems to take the more try to charm the person scenario. The main character from Fallen Order definitely had the keep your head down, don't talk to anyone kind of thing going on. So, but it sounds like both ended up not while not maybe being fully disconnected with the Force, it sounds like, both of them survived from trying to not basically be a Jedi. So that also, especially given what we learned from the Acolyte, as if you don't consistently practice using the Force, your power fades over time. I am curious if that's something that's going to happen with his character. Is like maybe he doesn't have full control of the Force like he used to, because he's been used to not using it for so long. So I'm curious if that's going to play a part into his character arc.
Quimir would certainly question that, Stuart. He's like, or does it? That's what the Jedi
Oh
wants you to
yeah,
believe.
exactly.
But all you have to do is just tap into some really negative emotions, and they'll come back. But yeah, that's pretty interesting. He also says you don't have to know everything about Star Wars to enjoy the show. You can come into it completely fresh and enjoy the story. But if you do happen to be a Star Wars super fan, there's also a lot for you as well. And we do have a premiere date for Skeleton Crew, premiering December 3rd on Disney Plus. So a very early sort of Christmas treat for you guys, if you will. I'm trying to see if they have some details for some of the characters in here. So looking at this image in particular, again, it does say from left to right, this is Neil. So the elephant, I can't even know. I don't even know what the species is, but this is Neil to the far left. Robert Timothy Smith is the actor playing him. And to the right, we've got Wim, played by Ravi Cabot Conyers. So Neil to the left, Wim to the right. Let's see here. Let's go ahead and bring up another image. I'm just reading the subtext at the bottom of these images in the article. From left to right, you've got Wim with the black curly hair. Jod Na Nawood, played by Jude Law. K8 or KB is the person in the back with the Geordie visors from Next Generation there. KB played by Kiriana Crater. And then, of course, you got Neil. And then on the very far right, the girl, that's Fern, played by Ryan Armstrong. I think we already showed the robot SM-33. This was another look at him. It looks like this is when they aboard the mysterious ship and they probably activate him. I am kind of curious who this mysterious ship is even from. Is this an Imperial droid? Did it work for the Empire at some point in time? Who was the captain of this particular ship? Was it a pirate ship? I am kind of curious to see more details about who that could potentially be, but that is SM-33. That's going to be voiced by Nick Frost.
My money, it's a pirate ship, and because this movie is very much inspired by the Goonies era, they're eventually going to have to fight Space One-Eyed Willie at the very end of the movie.
I thought I read somewhere that the one of the pirates that we see in season 3 of The Mandalorian was gonna pop up in this series.
Oh, I can see that.
I don't know if it's the pirate that he meets on where the planet that they finally was it Grief Karga? Who was he becomes like the chancellor of the place, and the pirates end up raiding the town. I don't know if it's one of the pirates that we actually saw raiding the town, or if it's like the big pirate guy that I think dies in The Mandalorian season 3, like in the big space battle or not. So I don't know, but I think one of those characters might pop up in here as a main villain as well.
Did we see a body when he died?
I don't remember.
Because maybe I think it is like probably going to be the big pirate guy from that season. And then be cool if we got a. Why do I always forget this guy's name? But the pirate from the Clone Wars and Rebels.
Oh, I know who you're talking about. Yeah, he's always a flip flopper. You never know he's on the right side or bad side of things.
Exactly.
So I can't remember his name off the top of my head.
That's why I think like Skeleton Crew would be perfect for him. This is the second time on the show that I've forgotten his name too. Hondo. Yes. Awesome. Thank you, Marcelino. Hondo. Yeah. I could see Hondo appearing in the show.
That would be pretty cool. I wouldn't mind seeing that for sure. So yeah, look, I am kind of excited for this one. You know, I don't know if this is going to be everybody's cup of tea sort of thing, but I am fascinated in the idea of a child, like this says, a childhood sort of adventure in the Star Wars universe. I think Jude Law is an incredible actor. I really love hearing specifically just how much Jude Law has kind of helped the kids out. You know, kid, you know, I don't want to say kid actors can't be great at what they do, because they certainly can. So I am really interested to kind of see who they've cast for these child roles. And I think having somebody opposite, like John Watts says, you know, Jude Law's become sort of like their co-mentor, their acting coach. And you know, I remember seeing them on stage together at Star Wars Celebration, and they looked like they were just all in love with each other. Like these kids really looked up to Jude as like this father figure of theirs. And you know, I'm sure when you spend months like that on a set, having to work side by side, you certainly probably do grow a really great bond with each other. And that is one aspect that I am eager to kind of see what their relationship and chemistry is going to be like on camera. The idea of this adult Jude Law here having to kind of like wrangle in these kids, or like keep them all, you know, together, instead of splitting off and going on their own sort of wild adventure sort of thing. So I do think that the kids are certainly going to be the anchor for this show, but I think it's certainly going to be Jude Law that winds up kind of keeping them together. And so I'm really fascinated to see just what that's going to be like an overall Star Wars story. And I really do trust John Watts. You know, I was a really big fan of what he was able to do with the Spider-Man Star Wars trilogy. Him working opposite Tom Holland, and not necessarily kid actors, but you know, you're dealing with them, you know, in high school, you know, coming of age sort of tales. And I think John Watts does a really good job too with an ensemble cast. And so there is something really like an anticipation level that I have to kind of see how John Watts takes that style and puts that into the Star Wars universe, because it certainly could feel really refreshing and a little bit of a Spielberg-esque kind of adventure. And I think Star Wars could certainly use something like that. And a breath of fresh air, kind of coming off of a mystery that was The Acolyte, something as serious as Andor season 1. You know, I do think Star Wars has room for different types of vibes and genres and tones that they want to go ahead and set. And so there is a part of me that's really eager to jump into a childhood adventure. And I just would say, um, for those that do watch the show and review the show, the only thing that I would say is let's just be, there's nothing wrong with having constructive criticism, but let's just not be cruel to some of these child actors, you know. Even though I may not have necessarily cared for how some of the performances were from the twins when it comes to The Acolyte, I certainly never sat up here and like bash them, because they are young and they're certainly continuing to grow in their performances. And I do think, if anything, we should always have that reminder of Jake Lloyd in the back of our head at all times.
Mhm.
You know, even though we are grown ass men watching shows like this, like maybe a childhood adventure is not something that really gravitates towards you, and that's fine. Um, but keep the kids out of it. You know what I'm saying? Like if you do feel some type of way about the show, keep the kids out of it. They're way too young, and they're still learning their craft. And we'll see how they do. But I think they've got somebody working opposite of them in Jude Law that I think can really elevate them for sure. And I'm eager to see what this is like, Stuart. But what do you think, man?
Yeah, I fully agree. I'd say definitely when it comes to performances from younger actors, often most of the time, if it's not the best performance, that's kind of more on the director than it is on the kids, because they're still developing their brain. They still don't fully grasp like, everything. So it's like you got to know how to teach him basically as a director. But yeah, everything that we're seeing in terms of like the vibe that the show is going for, I like that, we can have all these different Star Wars shows that give us different tones and have a very different audience in mind, so you can have a show like Andor, which very much goes to the older Star Wars fans. You can have a show like Acolyte, which is kind of a show meant for the young adults. And then now we have a show like Skeleton Crew, which seems to really be going for a younger audience. And I think that's great, because I think Star Wars should, there should be something for everyone when it comes to the Star Wars franchise. I look forward to this. Something I'm curious about, because the show, again, clearly going for a younger audience. So I'm curious if some certain, YouTubers who definitely, have, kind of the more toxic side of YouTube, let's just like leave it at that. If like they'll accept, if it's a show that they don't like, if they can just accept that it's a show that's not meant for them, or if they're going to like tear the show apart the exact same way they did with the Acolyte,
Yeah, you never know, man. You never know. I would just say, one thing too, while you say it might be a show for kids, there is a part of me that feels like, yeah, it probably is skewed towards children a little bit, but I think also family.
Oh yeah.
I feel like this is definitely like a family oriented type of vibe where everybody in the family could literally sit down and kind of just enjoy an adventure type of series. And that's one that I'm really fascinated in. I am curious how much of like the Jedi lore they might introduce into here, if any. Like, how will I'm assuming I'm pronouncing his name right, Jode, Jod. I am kind of curious as to how secretive he keeps it. Does he still have his lightsaber? Will we even see a lightsaber in here? So I'm kind of curious as to what elements of Star Wars will they rely sort of heavily on. There's a part of me when they say like mysterious ship, I'm thinking to myself like, ooh, like, are there Sith artifacts on there? Like, are people smuggling things that, that shouldn't be out there, sort of thing. Like, I am kind of curious if they will dive into any Jedi or Sith lore, if this is going to be strictly like pirates, bounty hunters sort of mentality, or just maybe a little bit of everything. So I am kind of curious to see who some of these characters that they Jude Law and these children kind of come across, so I do think this is going to be a little bit for everybody. I'm just leaning towards the more lighthearted side of things,
Of course.
But yeah, guys, let us know your thoughts in regards to Star Wars Skeleton Crew. Some great new first images, getting a look at some of the brand new children that are going to be populating this world with some new alien species as well. Some incredible vehicles and whatnot also. So yeah, man, we'll see what John Watts can certainly do in the Star Wars universe.
Super excited, and yes, we should all get back together to do a weekly review of the show as well, like we did with the Acolyte.
I'm game for it. It is in December, so I am kind of curious as to what people's schedules are going to be like come December. But according to them, it did say that this series is set to go ahead and debut. Enrique did ask the question, when is the release date for Skeleton Crew? They officially said December 3rd, which is in fact a Tuesday. So if anything, we'll get with the rest of the Jedi Council here from Hero Report and see if that's something that we can make work again every Wednesday night for you guys, since it will be dropping every Tuesday, beginning December 3rd. So yeah, I would love to do that again, Stuart. I really would.
Sweet.
Marcelino says, speaking of the Acolyte, the YouTuber, the Gold Man, has made both his reviews and rewrite. In his rewrite, he structured it as a movie instead. I highly recommend watching both videos in his channel overall. Thank you very much for that, Marcelino.
If his rewrite is structuring it as a movie, then I would probably agree with that.
Marcelino says, the blue elephant species is called Ortolan, the same species as Max Reboot is a part of. Yeah, I didn't know what his the species was called. Ortolan. Thank you so much.
I always think of the Robot Chicken sketch, Max Reboot's new album, I'm Not a Blue Elephant.
It also says the pirate you're thinking of, I'm assuming from The Mandalorian, was Vane, the second in command, who abandoned his boss after seeing him lose. Okay,
Mhm.
interesting. Interesting. But yeah, man, December 3rd, Skeleton Crew. Let us know your thoughts in the comment section box below. What do you think about the brand new details, brand new images? What aspects of the show are you kind of looking forward to? Please let us know your thoughts in the comment section box below. Man, I meant to bring up one more article here. Hold on a second.
Oh,
Do I have it? Dang it. I was trying to find this other article to go on board with damn, do they have the article? There was a Jeff Snyder. Sorry for the awkward delay. There was an article from Jeff Snyder, the Jeff Insider or something like that. Let me see where he talks about our next article that we're going to be getting into for Marvel Studios and the return of Robert Downey Jr. Oh, here we go. I'm going to. So I found an article from Variety that talks a little bit about behind the scenes for the return of Robert Downey Jr. But there is a part of me that wants to read what Jeff Snyder wrote, because he wrote this article before Variety had dropped theirs. And I think Variety is emphasizing some different details than what he certainly was. And so I want to go ahead and highlight some of the things that he talked about in here. So let me go ahead and bring this up, because we are going to dive a little bit more into new details that are beginning to emerge for the return of Robert Downey Jr., including paydays for both Robert Downey Jr. and the Russo brothers as to how much they're going to be making for the return for Avengers Doomsday. And a little bit more insight in regards to maybe how long people have known about this, because the idea of Robert Downey Jr. playing Doctor Doom has been a rumor for quite some time. I don't know if it picked up a lot of steam because maybe some people felt like, oh, that's just way too out of left field. But it has been a rumor that's been out there for a minute now. And so Jeff Snyder, in his recent newsletter, highlights how he got some of the information, how much Marvel Studios kind of pushed back or lied to him about this intel, when in reality he's kind of known about this for quite some time. And then Variety this week also kind of piggybacked off of what Jeff Snyder said and gave further details. So I do think that it is important to give Jeff Snyder his due and really talk about the details that he has, and then we'll compare it to what a Variety has. Is that cool with you, Stuart?
definitely.
All right, so let's go ahead and do this. I'm going to bring up this first article here. Inside Robert Downey Jr.'s return to the MCU, his casting as Doctor Doom, and his massive salary. Let me go ahead and pull up this image here too. For those of you who missed it, Robert Downey Jr. did in fact return at San Diego Comic-Con. He says, to say this was a monster tip would be an understatement of the century. This was honestly world news, the kind of news that would delight the world, or so I thought, which is my favorite kind of news to break. He says, I had lunch on the books with the representative for Marvel and Disney back on May 21st. So I decided to wait to inquire until we were face to face, as this was kind of a thing that both merited an in-person conversation and would, in theory, hold during that time. But then our lunch got Thanos snapped for some reason, not even rescheduled. Mind you, this is May 21st. And I was left with no choice but to call Marvel, with whom I had always had a solid relationship going back years. When I told Marvel what I had been hearing, the studio denied it. And I accepted their denial at face value, as I always have for that same rep has kept me from getting egg on my face plenty of times. But the thought never went away. It's precisely the kind of big, bold move that the MCU needs, and more importantly, that Downey would go for. Sure enough, on Saturday night, Marvel announced RDJ would be coming back. Of course, that they left out the part about the character first being introduced in a post-credit scene at the end of Fantastic Four: First Steps, but that's besides the point. So Jeff Snyder's dropping additional information. The guy clearly knew the Doomsday stuff or Doctor Doom stuff way back on May 21st. And this is probably an additional piece of information that Marvel denied to answer his question. But if the RDJ stuff wind up coming true, clearly the idea that him saying they left out the part of the character being introduced in the Fantastic Four post-credit scene. So he's hinting at the idea that that's probably going to be our very first look at Robert Downey Jr. in the MCU as Doctor Doom. So I think that's a big piece of information there. He says the point is that Robert Downey Jr. is back, baby, the real Marvel genius. He says, is this stunt casting done out of desperation, or is it a work of creative genius? You be the judge. Let's start with the fact that despite his protestations, it was only a matter of time before Downey would return to the MCU. As for why Downey wanted to come back to the MCU right now, well, for starters, it needs him more than ever. That much is clear. He says, sure, Deadpool and Wolverine just posted the biggest weekend. Plus, it's going over like gangbusters with audiences. But as Deadpool himself jokes in the film, the MCU seems to be stuck in a creative low point, and it needs a lightning bolt of entertainment to revive fan interest. Downey's casting accomplishes that in one fell swoop. Meanwhile, after years of people wondering, when will Robert get back to acting in real films that aren't comic book movies, Downey reminded the world that he's still one of the greatest dramatic actors, winning an Oscar in Oppenheimer. In other words, he has more than earned the right to return to the MCU. As for the question of why Doctor Doom, it was never a secret that Marvel wanted Downey back, but he was never coming back to play Iron Man again, as he already said goodbye to that character, whose death perhaps the most affecting moment in MCU history. You can argue Downey's return at Comic-Con is now on that list, as it ranks among Instagram's top 12 most viewed videos of all time. But he's not back as Iron Man, having closed a chapter on that character. If Downey was ever going to come back, it was going to be the idea of playing new notes, villainous notes. Don't forget, he was eyed to play Doctor Doom back in the 2005 Fantastic Four movie, which I didn't even know about that, Stuart.
I didn't know that either.
Ultimately losing the role to Julian McMahon from Nip Tuck, which I was a big fan of that series, Nip Tuck. That was pre-MCU days, but Kevin Feige was the EP on those early Fantastic Four films. So I had no idea that Robert Downey Jr. was already in line to play Doctor Doom at some point in time. That's pretty bananas how that kind of comes full circle, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. It's yeah, something I didn't even know about. And oh man, I know there's like another example of something like that. Well, I guess actually, yeah, recently, I'm sorry, this is a spoiler for anyone who hasn't seen the newest Deadpool recently, but it's like
spoiler alert.
But it's like when they got Channing Tatum to come in as the Gambit, because that's something he had been wanting to do for a while, but it just like never happened.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, it kind of plays that way too. To be honest, the character of Doom isn't a far cry from Downey's Oscar-winning role in Oppenheimer, as Doom is also a guy who's incredibly jealous of his younger, smarter colleague and goes scorched earth on him. But I digress. Jonathan Majors' legal troubles gave Marvel the perfect cover opportunity to ditch the Kang storyline and reframe the future of the MCU around a new big bad, who I knew would be an A-list name. That feeling was only reiterated when Ralph Ineson, a great voice actor, no doubt, was cast as Galactus, which felt like a money-saving move to me. I know Marvel wanted Javier Bardem for that role, but when his F1 schedule proved difficult, they didn't bother choosing other A-list names since the character is CGI anyway. He says those savings are not going directly to Downey's bank account, as I'm told he'll make $50 million per movie. with the chance to double that based on certain box office incentives.
Wow.
He says the Russos will earn a little less, about $40 million per movie between them before box office bonuses kick in. So pay attention to these numbers here, Stuart. Downey, reportedly by Jeff Snyder, set to make $50 million per movie. The Russos will earn a little bit less, about $40 million per movie. But then we also have to take in box office incentives. If you recall, Downey's Avengers Endgame salary was only $20 million, though he wound up remaking about $75 million after all was said and done. Now there is a point of contention about whether Downey will play Tony Stark variant or Victor Von Doom. The original tip that I received indicated that he'd be a Stark variant, though Worlds of Real's Jordan Rumi says he heard it won't be a Stark variant. He's just Victor Von Doom. The Hollywood Reporter noted how the Russo brothers introduced Downey as playing Victor Von Doom and suggested that in doing so, it squashes any notion that Doom was a Stark variant. But the trade then asked, if he's not, then what's the point of casting the same actor who played Iron Man? Indeed, what is the point? It doesn't make any sense. And it only seems to work if Downey is playing a Stark variant. But either way, I highly doubt that he's just playing a new role in the MCU sans explanation, as the audience deserves one beyond, it's the multiverse, man. Just go with it. And they highlight Gemma Chan having done this before, along with Michelle Yeoh, who did a cameo in Guardians of the Galaxy 2 before playing a different character in Shang-Chi. He says it makes more sense if Downey is playing an evil Tony Stark variant who was perhaps the anchor of a sacred Marvel timeline and now wants to destroy it. But here's the truth, folks. I don't really give a shit either way. So yeah, there's more to it, and I highly recommend you guys certainly check it out for yourself. But I don't, we didn't get a chance to talk about this, Stuart, because I don't think you were around at the time when we highlighted the return of Robert Downey Jr. when I did the SDCC recap for Marvel Studios. I have my own particular points of view on the return of Robert Downey Jr. as Dr. Doom into the MCU here. But I do want to know your thoughts because, I've heard terms like creatively bankrupt, desperation, a cash grab, to some people that find it ridiculous that he's coming back. It doesn't make any sense. Are you in that same vein in regards to that's how you kind of view it? Or how are you viewing the return of Robert Downey Jr.? Especially
I know that this is the most boring way I can put it, or boring, side I can take, but I'm very neutral about it. I'm not excited for it, but I'm also not as angry about it as I've seen some people online. But at the same time, I do have to admit, this feels kind of desperate from Marvel. And I say that because I can't think of any story reasons for them to choose this. The only thing I can think of why they would go with Robert Downey Jr. For Dr. Doom is marketing. I can't think of any story reasons of why, and maybe I'm wrong. Of course, I say that all the time when I'm like not optimistic about something, that there's a chance the movie could prove me wrong. And there's definitely a chance that could happen here, but I kind of doubt it. To me, it all seems like this was done for marketing, and in terms of like story, it doesn't seem like there was a creative story purpose for why they chose to cast Robert Downey Jr. as Dr. Doom. And if people, and I know like the way they try to say it on stage, is they try to say, oh, because he's the only actor that can play this role. He's too perfect for this role. It's like, no, I can think of a few other actors. In fact, if we're even using MCU actors, Matt Mikkelsen, like I know you already used him in Doctor Strange, but he would have been kind of a perfect Doctor Doom, especially if it's going to be like a different universe. So it's like, yeah, I'm looking at all the positives and negatives of Robert Downey Jr. being Doctor Doom, and all the positives lead to one thing, and that is marketing.
I love it, man. I love it. I mean, I said this in my recap. For me, while I do feel a sense of desperation when I see this, I also said I don't necessarily know if desperation is always a bad thing though. You know, I do think desperation can lead to um some things of success if it's executed and done well. And the analogy I wind up giving at the time was um, a football Hail Mary, when it's the last ditch effort. You need something to win the game, right? And you come up and you execute this plan, or you come up with this game plan, and the quarterback just chucks it into the end zone, hoping that his teammates will be there to grab it, and they catch it and they score the touchdown, they win the game, and nobody questions the decision anymore, right? Like, oh, what a brilliant play that was, sort of thing. So sometimes I do think acts of desperation can certainly come out to be a winning formula. And while I do think that this does smell of desperation, I don't have a problem with it. And I say that in a sense, I think Marvel Studios has taken the time to reevaluate this situation. I think they've got plenty of comic book lore that they can kind of tap into, because Iron Man and Doctor Doom just have an interconnected legacy of countless stories of whether it be Tony Stark turns into Doctor Doom turns into Iron Man, body swapping sort of thing, right? Like there's plenty of stories that they can easily tap into to try and make it work if they've spent the time properly to come up with creative off ramps from something like a Kang storyline into Doctor Doom. And I think the article also goes on to mention, like, Downey was only going to come back if the Russo brothers came back. I think the addition of the Russo brothers is probably one of the reasons they were able to get Robert to come back to the role. And I do think when you team up, even though I haven't been necessarily the biggest fan of what the Russo brothers have done outside of the MCU, when they work with Kevin Feige, they've made gold each and every time. They got like that Midas touch sort of thing, and so I'm hopeful. I will say that I'm hopeful. I would agree with you. He's not the only person that can play Doctor Doom. I too brought up Mad Mikkelsen. I also brought up like Keanu Reeves. Like there's a
Oh
couple people.
man.
There's a couple people out there I really would have loved to have seen their iteration of Doctor Doom. So I don't think Robert Downey Jr. was the only choice. But I do think from a creative storyline standpoint, if you're bringing back Robert Downey Jr., I just think there's got to be an ultimate impactful storyline that they've brewed up here to kind of try and really make this work. Otherwise, especially fresh off of an Oscar, I just don't think Robert Downey Jr. would come back if it wasn't special. You know what I mean? Like, I just don't know if he would waste his time in returning back to the MCU fresh off of Oppenheimer if the game plan wasn't solid enough that he thinks the audience would really go for it. But that's just how I view that situation, though.
Yeah, for me, I think it's more that I don't think he really knows what the full game plan is at the moment. I think he just really trusts the Russo brothers. So I think that's like his main thing of coming back, is that he's trusting that they know what they're doing. But the big thing I will also say about him being Doom is that at least we know we're going to get a Doom that will give it his all, because that's one thing that Robert Downey Jr. does, is that it doesn't matter what kind of project he's working on. A lot of people like to make jokes about how he was phoning it in the MCU, but it's like, if he was, then he's like Harrison Ford when he phoned it in Star Wars. It's like he's still an amazing actor. So I do think he can give a great performance as Doctor Doom. He just wouldn't have been my first personal choice.
Yeah, no, me either. Sam says Adam Driver would have been a good Doctor Doom. That's interesting.
I could see that.
Yeah, I could see that too. But jumping off of that, I do want to dive into what Variety is reporting, and I do find it interesting to remember those numbers that Jeff Snyder initially gave out. He said Robert Downey Jr. making $50 million, the Russos making under or just under that at $40 million. Variety is saying different. This is behind Robert Downey Jr.'s and the Russo brothers' mega Avengers Payday, and it does. I'll give you my thoughts after this, Stuart. But after a bruising year, Marvel is returning to the very thing that worked in the past. That means reuniting the franchise crown jewel Robert Downey Jr. as well as the Russo brothers. Bringing back the key members of the old gang won't be cheap. Sources say Marvel is plucking down $80 million for Anthony and Joe Russo to direct Avengers. So Variety nearly doubled, Stuart, the amount.
No, it's the same amount because in the previous article it said 40 million each. In this article it's saying 80.
Oh, he said 40 each?
Yeah, I think so, right? I'm pretty sure it said each.
Damn. Why they let me hold on, let me go and read that again real quick because I thought it was just the two of them to go. Well, I guess that would make sense. I mean, I guess that would oh yeah, you're right. About 40 mil. Well, it says $40 million per movie between them.
Oh no, you're right then. Okay, my bad.
So then I'm assuming that's 20 million a person if we're talking about what Jeff Snyder says. So, but this is the guy saying sources say Marvel is plucking down $80 million for Anthony and Joe Russo. So I'm like, is that 80 million between them? So is that 40 million
it's
per
80
person?
million including both films though.
Ah, you know what? You're right. You're right. Because it does say to direct Doomsday and Secret Wars. So, okay. So that's where that 40 million is. Okay. So it's not just for one film. Thank you so much for clarifying that for me now that I read that. So it says Marvel is plucking down $80 million for Anthony Joe Russo to direct Doomsday and Secret Wars, which would line up with what Snyder says because he said $40 million between them for each film. So that does line up. The Russo's deal doesn't include back-end compensation, but it does contain performance escalators that kick in at $750 million and a $1 billion threshold. A source close to the production disputes those figures and claim the Russo's paydays are lower. The brothers are also will also produce the two films via their production banner as well. From Downey, who helped catapult, does this give me I'm trying to see if it gives me a Downey number. It says still some changes are in order. While the Russo brothers' previous two movies were shot in Atlanta, the new outing will be filmed in London beginning the second quarter of 2025. It doesn't give me a number though for Robert Downey Jr. Sources say Downey that they were the only ones that he would work with in regards to the Russo brothers. So that looks like that's one of the reasons why he kind of came back. So yeah, it doesn't give me a number for Robert Downey Jr., which I'm surprised, but it does give us a number for the Russo brothers. So yeah, if you believe Jeff Snyder, he's looking at $50 million per film. So about $100 million to do Secret Wars and Doomsday together, whereas the Russos earning $40 million per movie, so about $80 million in total to go ahead and direct the Secret Wars and Doomsday as well. So some big paydays for both guys, Stuart.
Definitely. It's funny. It's like with all the big actors that they're bringing in, like I could just see the special effects for both these movies looking absolutely terrible. And it's like, well, we had to spend like $500 million getting, Robert Downey Jr., Ryan Reynolds, Hugh Jackman. We only had like $20 for special effects.
Yeah, that does make me curious as to like what the budget of these films are gonna kind of balloon up to when you're already adding that type of money. I mean, you think about just Downey alone for one film at 50 million, the Russos at 40 million. That's $90 million added onto a budget already. You haven't even added any other actors, no crew to work, no marketing as of yet. I mean, this could be like an easy $300-400 million movie. Where you really would have to cross like 750 million in order to kind of make some sort of profit. So, I'm hoping that to the MCU isn't immediately putting themselves, or Marvel Studios isn't immediately putting themselves behind the 8 ball here. But I don't. My thing is, I just don't know. It's interesting, Stuart, because I literally just looked at the top 10 highest grossing film rankings yesterday. And of Endgame, I think, is in like the $2 billion mark, and Infinity War is up there too with like $1 billion. Not every movie makes that type of money, and those two movies, I think, really blew away. I don't want to say blew away expectations, but they were just at the perfect time of what the MCU was. And it does make me wonder if something like a Doomsday or a Secret Wars can garner that same attention and love and draw people out to the movies again. I want to say Infinity War and Endgame was like a once in a lifetime sort of movement. Because again, it's not every day that every movie makes $1 billion. And so to kind of risk it all on the Russos and Downey at such a high amount, it almost feels like you're hoping for lightning to strike twice, to then have Doomsday, maybe even Secret Wars, break that sort of top 10. And that just feels like a very risk reward, like a pairing that I don't necessarily know if they'll benefit from it at the end of the day. Like I have my doubts, just based off of where we're at, but we haven't seen the story yet. So anything is certainly possible. It just feels like an uphill climb if they're devoting all that money towards these two films. It almost feels like they almost feel like it's in the bag. You know what I mean? For them to make that type of money again.
Yeah.
So we'll see though. We'll see how it turns out. But yeah.
Real indeed.
Let us know your thoughts in the comment section box below, guys, now that we've got ourselves more details about the return of Robert Downey Jr. Sam says, yeah, it feels like Robert Downey Jr. as Dr. Doom will be like the Lord Draken of JDF's Shattered Grid.
It's a great comparison.
Yeah, absolutely. Billy, what's up, Billy? Hey, Adam and Stu. Robert Downey Jr. is not my first choice as Dr. Doom, but I will watch it. Yeah, he's not my first choice either, but he's that talented of an actor, though, that I think he even said when he was on stage, he's like, I told you guys I like playing complicated characters, and yeah, I could definitely see him really sinking his teeth sort of into this role again. So we'll see how it turns out.
I am curious too if Dr. Doom's helmet is going to look more like Dr. Doom or if it's going to end up looking a little more like Iron Man. I really hope it doesn't look like Iron Man. But that being said, though, I wouldn't mind though if the Doom bots looked kind of similar to the Iron Man kind of bots that he built like during Avengers 2 Age of Ultron.
Oh yeah. That would be pretty cool if that was the same design.
Yeah. Like that could work. I just hope the mask isn't like based on Iron Man in order to do like some like forced foreshadowing or anything.
Oh yeah, no, I totally get you. I have seen some really cool AI work of or at least I'm assuming it's AI. Maybe it's just really great digital work of somebody putting Tony Stark or Robert Downey Jr. in Doctor Doom and a Doctor Doom costume. It looks really regal and like tattered, and I mean it looks really great, but there are some hints and inspirations from an Iron Man costume in there that I don't think look too bad at all, but maybe a little bit too on the nose. I would agree with you, but I would be curious to see what the costume design is. I hope it's just not this. Like just don't like this. Just don't let it be like this, please. I'm sure that's just for SDCC, something real quick they put together, but I am fascinated to kind of see what this costume design is going to look like.
Yeah, I was going to say that would have looked cheap for the Roger Corman Fantastic Four movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, oh man, I had one final thought and I forgot what it was. Damn, it'll come back to me.
It'll come back. But let's go ahead and move on to our next topic. We're going to get into the world of DCU, as we've got some series that's about to go ahead and get into production here rather soon. We do have two projects right now that I think are almost ready to start filming. I think we've got the Supergirl movie starring Millie Alcock that I believe so far is set to go ahead and start filming sometime towards the end of this year. I haven't heard any changes as to whether or not it's been pushed to early 2025 or not as of right now, but I do expect Supergirl to get in front of cameras by the end of the year, or at least beginning of the year. But it looks like the other DCU project that's currently in the works that's relatively far along is in fact the DC series Lanterns that we continue to hear more and more about, it seems like, on a weekly basis. This actually comes to us, we have some more details that are starting to creep up here. This comes to us from Nexus News, nexuspointnews.com. I feel like this website has kind of been nailing down some rumors and things recently. So I do find myself paying a little bit more attention to them as a source of information. I believe they are the ones that might have revealed that Kumail Nanjiani might be playing Booster Gold, which I believe Jolo Maraduena at a recent GalaxyCon convention might have confirmed that to be the case. So if that still holds true, Nexus Point News, I believe, was the first group of people that actually came up with that revelation in an exclusive article. And here's another one. More details emerge as DC Lanterns prepares for production. It says as Superman wraps and season 2 of Peacemaker continues shooting, another DC Studios project is preparing to begin production at the top of the year. It says here, Lanterns, as previously reported by us, the HBO original series was looking to begin filming sometime the first quarter of 2025. More specific production details have emerged, giving us a better sense of when cameras will start rolling on the superhero detective series. We have learned exclusively from their sources that production is slated to begin January of 2025 and continue through June of that year. Although we had previously heard rumblings that the series is looking to shoot in the United Kingdom, we have heard that it will now be shooting in Atlanta. So according to them, shooting in Atlanta beginning January of 2025 through June. The True Detective inspired series will follow veteran Green Lantern Hal Jordan and rookie John Stewart as they investigate a murder in the American heartland. Having Atlanta be the filming location of the series will hopefully allow for more opportunities to shoot on location, as Atlanta is part of the American heartland. As previously mentioned, casting has officially begun, Stuart, on Lanterns. Casting descriptions reported by DCU Leaks and Nexus Point News pointed to the leads Hal and John being in their 40s and 30s, respectively. Since the casting process typically tends to skew out of these age ranges, some actors being looked at are slightly younger or older. Nexus Point News has also heard that the role of Hal Jordan is intended to go to a noteworthy name. Casting on Hal Jordan is currently the priority, with casting for John following it. It is likely that this could be potentially chemistry reads for the duo. Lanterns officially picked up HBO as an 8-episode series and is in development for the Chapter 1 of the DC Universe. So that's what we have right now. So some interesting new details about what we can expect. So again, production as of right now set for January of 2025 into June, shooting in Georgia, along with the idea that they are casting has officially begun for Hal and John, being set in their 40s and 30s, age-wise, 40s and 30s. They also say since the casting process typically tends to skew out of these age ranges, some people could be slightly younger or older that they're looking at. Hal Jordan is intended to go to a noteworthy name, and Hal Jordan right now is the current priority over John, as they could potentially be waiting to do chemistry reads as well, Stuart. So you hear this news, man. Does this bump up your excitement level? What do you take away from this? Any casting suggestions you might have? What are your thoughts on this in general?
Ooh, casting suggestions. Oh man, that's gonna be a big one. But yeah, no, my thoughts kind of the same as they've been. Like I'm still super hyped for this. And it's good that they're taking their time, definitely trying to look for people with the correct chemistry. But yeah, I didn't expect them to kind of go like not to say that that's that old, but like compared to other superhero films where they're usually casting people like in their or mid 20s to like early 30s, it's interesting that here that they're going for people who are possibly in their 40s. I'm wondering if that's only for Hal Jordan or if they want it for both Hal Jordan and John Stewart. But I think it would make more sense if we're going with the idea of Hal Jordan being the veteran, if he's like a little bit older than John Stewart. And connection that I'm just now putting together is that if they do that dynamic and the fact that it's basically two people that protect Earth from unknown threats from outer space it gives me very much Men in Black vibes.
Oh, yeah, that's a really great comparison.
But yeah, I think everything I'm hearing about the plot, sounds interesting. I like that they're going with a grounded approach for its first season, and yeah, I'm really excited to see who they end up casting. I know that a lot of people, because this guy has been everywhere and he does, look like he could pull off the role. Plus, he knows how to fly a plane, so a lot of people want Glenn Powell as Hal Jordan, and I could definitely see him doing that role. So I think he'd probably be my number one pick for Hal Jordan. I think for John Stewart, John Boyega, if we're going young, I think would be a really good choice
Ooh.
because he's in good
Ooh.
shape. He's probably that age range that they're looking for. And he knows how to have chemistry with other actors, especially depending on who they cast to work with him. So I think that'd be my two casting choices.
God damn, that John Boyega um um recommendation is spot on, bro. I love John Boyega. I truly do. And look, let's be real, man. Black don't crack. I mean, they could be 40 years old and look like they're in their 20s, man. John Boyega is 32 years old. He looks like he's 19. You know what I'm saying? I just looked up Aldous Hodge. Aldous Hodge is 37 years old. The guy that played Hawkman. He looks like he's at least early 30s for sure. Like, I mean, I think both of like that would be my suggestion would be Aldous Hodge, just because I love them in Hawkman. So as Hawkman so much, I really would like to see him as sort of like a um well, I can't say a veteran per se, but because he's supposed to be the rookie out of the two. But I'm sure he's probably had his career. He's not like a wet behind the ears type of rookie when it comes to, his time in the special forces and whatnot. But maybe just rookie when it comes to being a lantern. So
That's what I'm assuming is that rookie as a lantern, but
yeah.
he's definitely had his combat experience from serving in the military.
Yeah, and so I like Aldous Hodge. I love your pick on John Boyega. I really want to see more John Boyega. But we'll see who they wind up getting in here. Glenn Powell, he is 35 years old. Um, so he probably would fit that range that they're maybe looking for an older Hal Jordan. The idea of Hal being the veteran and being up there in age, it does make me wonder. I just remember growing up in the 90s and seeing Hal Jordan as an older man with like the gray side flare, like the gray hair on the side. Um, so there's a part of me that kind of wants to see that. But when I picture Hal Jordan a little bit older with that gray hair, I don't know why I think of like Parallax and his evil side. And I do wonder if we'll get a storyline like that for Hal Jordan of him, eventually turning into the big bad. Like, what if the mystery ends up being
Ooh.
Hal Jordan is the villain of all this as Parallax, and we get ourselves like a 0 hour sort of storyline that they're brewing here.
That would be a very ballsy move because there's a lot of comic book fans that hated when Hal Jordan became Parallax. So that would be incredibly ballsy if that was the first story that they wanted to bring into the DCU with the Green Lanterns.
Yeah, I would be completely open if that's something, especially since they're making him a little bit older. making him sort of the veteran out of these two. Jordan's seen some shit, and so I do wonder if there's a backstory to him that is brewing here that we might tap into. But so yeah, I'm fascinated. I'm glad to know that casting is certainly underway. That would certainly make me believe that. I'm hoping that by the time we get to Thanksgiving, Stuart, I'm hoping before Thanksgiving we've got some casting announcements that are being made. Who knows? Shit, maybe next week we get more information. But it does feel like momentum is picking up for the Lantern series for sure.
Definitely. I'm also curious if we're gonna like through casting, if that's how we're gonna learn about other like DC extended universe characters like being in the show. Like if they're gonna announce, for example, Hal Jordan's girlfriend, because we know things do not end well there. So if they introduce her in the show, I would say don't get too attached to her character because they'll probably go with something from the comic books. But yeah, that's another thing I'm kind of curious is the supporting cast. Is it going to be people from the Green Lantern comic books, or are they going to kind of just be sticking to like original characters? How that's going to play out?
Yeah, like I would like to know, are we gonna get a Kilowog in here? There's a part of me that kind of wants to see a Kyle Rayner, how he pops up in here. Do we get like a Jessica Cruz somewhere? There's a lot of potential here, So I'm kind of excited to see this finally come together. Blossom, what's up, Blossom? I forgot that DC made that many lanterns as well as core that they're from. I've been meaning to get into the Lantern series more. I still got a grudge to settle in the fantasy fight debate against a friend of mine who keeps a lantern ring. Yeah, I remember going to the comic book shop during the time when they had all the different emotions and the spectrum of colors and stuff. And you were able to pick out your own Green Lantern ring, whether it be like just a different color if you'd like for a different emotion. But it was that storyline was around for a while. Marcelino says it probably won't happen, but I wouldn't mind if Andrew Lee Potts was Hal Jordan. Who's that? Andrew Lee Potts?
Oh no, I'm looking that up now.
Oh, interesting. Who is he? He's 44 years old, an English actor, and also a director. I'm trying to see what else he might have been in off the top of my head. Marcelino also
Oh, it's in Band
suggests
of Brothers, which is a great show.
John Boyega or even Shamir Anderson would be great as John Stewart. So he definitely agrees with you there. Shamir Anderson, let me see, Canadian actor. Yeah, I feel like I've seen him. I think he would be a really good one for that role too. Shamir Anderson. I have seen him before. He's only 33 years old too, so that's is definitely something to keep an eye on as well. That's a great suggestion, man.
Yeah.
Blossom says Parallax is the Yellow Lantern entity of fear, right? Yes, he is. Mm-hmm. But yeah, guys, let us know your thoughts. Do you have any casting suggestions for a Hal Jordan, possibly set in the age range around 40 years old, and a John Stewart as the rookie Lantern here in his 30s? If you have any casting suggestions, certainly let us know your thoughts in the comment section box below. As a production, according to Nexus News Point, pointnews.com is set to begin January of next year. So it's really cool to kind of see a lot of these projects kind of coming together. If anything, I'm more eager now to kind of see, like, now that we know Lanterns and Supergirl are set to go into production at the end of the year and beginning of 2025, what's next, James? Like, I wonder what's the next furthest along project that he's got. So and what's fascinating, he still hasn't come out and talked about Kumail Nanjiani as Booster Gold. I don't think he's yet to deny that piece of information out there. So I am continuing to think that there might be something there.
He did. It wasn't directly aimed at Camille, but he did make a post saying that, reminder, we do not cast until the show is greenlit and ready to go. And so
Okay.
it's, on the one hand, made me think that he was debunking that, but then that same week, Jolo, during the interview, that's when he said, oh yeah, I think it's confirmed.
Okay. So maybe I'll still keep it as a grain of salt
Yeah.
until then. So yeah, we won't confirm that as of right now. But yeah, guys, let us know your thoughts in regards to how the DCU is certainly coming together. And with that out of the way, let's move on to our next topic. As Stuart, believe it or not, we got ourselves a brand new Hellboy movie that's dropping this year and actually coming rather soon. According to some of the reports, we may have this Hellboy movie dropping in September. And there's a part of me that's ready for marketing to really sort of kick up here. I don't know how much money they're spending on marketing and promotion of this film, if much. But I do think that they probably should spend a little bit more money here because we did recently get ourselves a Hellboy, the Crooked Man trailer that was released at San Diego Comic-Con. For those of you who recall, a couple of months ago, we did get ourselves a teaser trailer, which honestly, not only did it look low budget, but it didn't really necessarily move the needle for me. I did find it fascinating in regards to the tone and the vibe that they were trying to capture in it, but the trailer itself just didn't do anything for me. But Stuart, they dropped a longer trailer at San Diego Comic-Con for Hellboy the Crooked Man, and it is 10 times better than the first one that we wind up getting, to the point to where they officially have my attention now. And this past week, the creator, Mike Mignola, the creator of Hellboy, has been making his rounds, talking about the film, his mindset going into it. And I think we even have one of the cast members talking about the movie as well. And so, since this movie is set to go ahead and drop in September sometime, as far as I know, I thought it'd be interesting to go ahead and talk about this brand new Hellboy movie that, yes, while certainly going more low budget, seems like this is probably the closest iteration to the Hellboy character that we've gotten from the comic books to the big screen. So we've got two articles here that we're going to bounce off of. First, this is from Screen Rant, saying how second Hellboy reboot is most accurate adaptation yet explained by the creator. I was so grateful, is what he says. So let's go ahead and dive into this. While audiences may be divided on the movie for the time being, Mike Mignola has, come on, Screen Rant, has some major praise for Hellboy the Crooked Man. The upcoming film serves as the second reboot of the movie franchise based on Mignola's comic book character in the same name. This time adapting the limited series as the protagonist becomes stranded near a town targeted by a demonic force in the 1950s. Come on, what is going on with this website, bro? Deadpool 2 alum Jack Kesey leads the ensemble as Hellboy. It says, in honor of this year's San Diego Comic-Con, Screen Rant interviewed him and asked them about the movie's accuracy to the comic books. And this is what he had to say. He says, my God, I'm going to break my computer right now. My favorite thing was to see how close it is to the comics. There are several shots in there that are panels from the comics, and your fear is always, especially when you say it's got to be my favorite story, that it's gonna lose something. But all my favorite moments from the comic are in there. I mean, you're holding your breath as you're watching this. I actually got to watch it. I didn't go on set, but I saw dailies, and you're just going, I can't believe this. Oh my God, you got this in there. And is it gonna stay in there when they cut the movie? Because there is a particular moment in the church that I love so much. I thought, are they going to add special effects to that? It's just quite a little moment. It could easily get cut, but it stayed all the way through. Not that I didn't like the other movies or love bits and pieces from the other movies. It was just, I was so grateful to see that somebody that really did want to put them in there, because at some point everybody says, oh yeah, we're going to put your comic on screen, but this is the time that it actually happened. It says, though some may have remained hopeful for the movie's chances after the underwhelming performance of David Harbour's led Hellboy reboot, the first trailer of the Crooked Man ultimately left audiences feeling a bit divided. Much like the upcoming Crow reboot, much of the criticism towards the first trailer revolved around the overall look of the upcoming movie, with many expressing it felt more like a fan film than a proper theatrical effort. Comparisons are also immediately made to Del Toro's films, which fans of the franchise have also continued campaign for a third installment. However, Mignola assurances the Hellboy the Crooked Man may be the most accurate adaptation of his comics are sure to come as a welcome sign for said detractors. Much of the source material has more of a paranormal detective structure than the blockbuster scale story as seen in prior incarnations of the franchise. It's a far more isolated story with horror-driven tone, which represents the perfect opportunity for setting the reboot apart from previous Hellboy installments. So yeah. Have you seen the new trailer, Stuart?
I honestly didn't know there was a new trailer. I saw the that there was like a first look or something from Comic-Con, and I assumed because of the thumbnail that it was just the same as the first trailer, so I actually haven't seen it. But now I am very curious to check it out. I like hearing that the reason that the writer is excited for this movie, like the idea of like, when he was asked if everything from his comic is going to be in the movie, his response was all of my favorite moments are going to be in the movie. So like the important bits from the comics, the parts that probably when he was writing on paper and his imagination was going wild, the parts that he would have loved to have seen, like what it would have looked like in live action, like that's cool to hear from him. And yeah, the big concern that I think a lot of fans have with this movie, in particular with its look, is definitely its lower budget. But I think that, as long as the writing is there, I do think fans will definitely enjoy this movie despite its not having that Marvel money. I think that good writing can overcome like a low budget. I mean, just look at the 1990s Ninja Turtles movie. I think it had like less than $60 million to it, but you still ended up having like some incredible fight scenes, a really a weirdly compelling story for a movie about like literally titled Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So if they could do that in the 90s, I'm sure you could do just as much, if not more, today with that kind of a budget.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you. Since you haven't had the opportunity to check out the trailer, let's watch the new trailer. This was dropped on July 29th. This is from IGN's page. Go ahead and bring this up for you guys. But here is the most recent trailer for Hellboy, The Crooked Man.
There's something going on here. I need to understand it. Like you do.
That's exactly why you shouldn't be here.
You might say a demonic entity falls under our expertise. Crooked Man's waiting on you.
That's interesting. Oh, you didn't want me to squash it?
Squashing's good.
I heard tales about him all my life. Most just called him the Crooked Man.
I thought Big Red wasn't scared of anything.
Well, I know something you're afraid of.
You hear something?
Your road ends in the dark like mine.
Let's just keep on coming.
It ain't even really begun.
Come on, Snake, let's rattle. Let not your horns be troubled. By way they know not. I will make the darkness light. And the crooked things straight.
power of prayer, son? Just in case.
And that's your trailer. What'd you think, Stu?
Yeah. Just like with the first one, I like it. I do like how creepy of like it definitely comes off, especially when we get introduced to the actual crooked man himself, the way he does like
Yeah.
the turn and everything.
Yeah.
You know, I definitely, yeah. You know what movie actually? You know what kind of vibes it gives me? Did you ever see the movie The Witch or The Witch? Because I think it was supposed
Yes.
to be two V's that make the W.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's what this kind of reminds me of visually. Is it kind of reminds me of The Witch, and yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to it. Again, lower budget, but that's okay. I think as long as the writing's there, people will enjoy it.
Yeah, I think as long as the writing is there, they might have something. This other article did talk a little bit about it. It says it is set in the God damn it, why are they doing this to me? All these damn ads on these websites now. It is set against the spine-chilling backdrop of the 1950s rural Appalachia, stranded with a rookie BPRD agent played by Adeline Rudolph uncovers a small town plagued by witches and led by the sinister Crooked Man. They do have the director talks a little bit about this, and there is a release date in here scheduled, or at least according to Collider, release date September 19th, even though I've yet to see like an actual trailer with the release date. But it does say release date September 19th, 2024.
Next month, okay.
Yeah, it's coming right around the corner. That's what I'm saying. I wish that they would like really push this movie a little bit more. They do ask the director, how's this version of the movie different from the one people have seen before? He says it's completely different. Come on. Completely different. We didn't go into this referencing any of the other movies. We went into it referencing absolutely one thing, that this is the original Mike Mignola comic book. We wanted to take Crooked Man and adapt it faithfully. That means it's a period piece. It's a younger Hellboy. It has no relation to the other films. It's sort of that much loved by myself and other fans folk horror, almost procedural kind of Hellboy. He's like a wandering night stalker. Is what they refer to him as. Come on, bro. This website, I'm tired of these.
Do you think like closing the ads would make it
I'm
better?
trying to, and then they just keep popping up over and over again, bro. Like, I'm gonna have to talk to whoever runs this Collider website. Like, guys, I can't even keep a page straight, bro. Like,
We literally have video evidence of how bad it is.
Yeah, like, dude, it's everywhere. It's everywhere. He's like a wandering night stalker. He'll just end up in your town for some reason. You've got a haunting. You've got some problems with dark forces, and he's a plumber. He's gonna solve it for you. That's kind of the Hellboy that we really like. My approach was to have the audience was to have an audience of one. If Mike Mignola feels that this is his Hellboy, then I feel like we succeeded. So yeah, that's interesting. I kind of appreciate that take. I definitely have to go into this movie realizing like this is definitely not your daddy's Hellboy. This is definitely going to be a completely different vision for it, and one that I'm hoping is kind of a refreshing one. Honestly, I think it is important here that because it is coming in such at a low budget, I would like to find out what that number is, but that could potentially mean a successful box office run, and successful doesn't have to be 400 million. It doesn't have to be 500 million, but let's say this movie was made off of what, 30-40 million dollars. If you can bring in what, 120 million, boom, like you're off to the races for certainly getting a sequel. So I am interested in the approach for them, instead of going such big summer blockbuster, to do something a little bit smaller and maybe something that's more in tune with who Hellboy is and can really capture the imagination and the attention of some really cult fans who are big Hellboy followers, or just diving into a new genre that's more fascinating and works better for the character itself. So I do see potential here, Stuart, for sure.
I do too. Yeah.
Marcelina says, I don't mind Hellboy being low budget, but why does it look cheap? There's a ton of low budget movies that retain the appearance of high quality as they have a bigger budget. It says this Hellboy's budget is $20 million. So if
Oh
they could
wow.
yeah, if they could get like 90 million, 80 million, I mean, that's like, that's a win for them.
Yeah.
So I'm rooting for it. I really am rooting for it. Sam says new Hellboy is going to be darker than the Hellboy David Harbour. Yeah, I think it's just going to be minus a lot of the big over the top sort of special effects. And so I'm definitely getting my space, my head in that sort of space of what to look forward to when it comes to this film. But thank you for bringing up the budget of this film, Marcelino, for sure.
I do remember with the David Harbour Hellboy, the build up to it. I thought basically tonally this was going to be the kind of thing that they were going to be going for, because I remember the articles were coming out how this would be a dark version of Hellboy, how this would be more in line with the comic books, and that they basically the main thing was that they wanted to go for a dark tone, and that's why it was rated R. And then the trailer came out, and it was, I haven't seen the movie, so maybe the movie itself is different, but it just looked like a comedy. Everything they were hyping up about it was not in the trailer at all.
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on how they put these trailers together and how they want you to perceive what their movie's going to be. Like, that's kind of my complaint with Transformers 1, is like the first two trailers that we wind up getting feel like so comedy heavy. And I'm like, I really just want a storyline trailer, guys, to let me know, like, what's the drama? What's the story like? And we finally got that at San Diego Comic-Con in their brand new, like, 2-3 minute long trailer, where it finally feels like this is a well-balanced movie. Like, there's just so much more going on in Transformers 1 than I expected. But it's just like, why do you leave that for the very last trailer? Like, I just feel like you're marketing this completely wrong. And so, yeah, marketing is very important, man. Marketing and putting together trailers are very important to get the audience in tune with what knowing what a movie is that they're supposed to be sitting down in the theaters to watch. And so you definitely want to try and get them on board as much as possible. And I personally do think that this trailer is so much more better than the first trailer that we wind up seeing from it. So maybe we get more promotion from this, as if that September date holds true, it'll be here in just over a month. So we'll see.
Yep.
With that out of the way, let's move on to our next topic. And we're getting into our bag. If you grew up in the 80s, man, you were a big Voltron fan. If you loved you some great animated television back in the day, I certainly did. Voltron did just have a very successful relaunch on Netflix several years ago with the Netflix animated series that went on for several seasons, if I'm not mistaken. Great way to certainly go ahead and reboot it in the form of animation. But one of the things that I've been looking forward to for quite some time, Stuart, is a live action adaptation of Voltron. And I believe last year or sometime we might have announced the idea of a Voltron reboot kind of being in the works, or kind of being trying to be sold off for a studio to certainly pick up. And we might have some new developments here, Stuart, worth tackling. So let's go ahead and dive into some Voltron reboot news for you guys today.
But I thought Voltron already had a live action adaptation. Wasn't it called Power Rangers or something?
God, Stuart, I knew you were gonna. I was just gonna sit here and say to myself, like, man, you know what? Considering the fact that Power Rangers literally, like, it's just a sad tale, bro. Like, it makes me so depressed just talking about it. Like, it's one of those things where I feel like if Voltron can finally get off the ground, Power Rangers truly missed their window of opportunity, bro.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because if you can make Voltron successful, I don't even know if we need Power Rangers after this, okay? I'm just going to be honest with you, man. Like, the window and opportunity was wide open with Brian Goldner and Power Rangers over at Hasbro, and Chris Cox just literally sunk that whole particular franchise. And now it seems as though, Stuart, that Voltron may be taking the place of it here. According to comicbook.com, it says, Voltron reboot reportedly ordered by Amazon MGM Studios. So it says it looks like the live action Voltron reboot has been greenlit according to a new report. Voltron's first made its debut back in the early 1980s. The franchise was a success that it went over 100 episodes and has since released many reboots, sequels, and reimagining over the decades. But a live-action adaptation has been out of grasps for a while and has been steadily making progress towards actually happening in the last few years. According to a new report, it's finally moving forward. First reported back in 2022 that a new live-action Voltron feature film was in development with Rawson Marshall Thurberg, who did Red Notice along with Central Intelligence attached to direct. The word back then was that it was being shopped around to multiple studios for potential development with Amazon MGM Studios. And now, according to a new report from the Jeff Insnyder, he says Amazon MGM Studios has greenlit the live-action Voltron with casting beginning in the coming months. So if this turns out to be the case, it seems like it is moving along quickly. So yeah, it looks like casting for this may in fact happen a lot quicker and a lot sooner than we imagined. But it's moving along. Can you look up Amazon Studios MGM or Amazon MGM Studios and see like what they've produced and put together? I am kind of, because I feel like I've seen their banner on the big movie theater, like big movies in theaters, because I'm kind of curious if this is going to be like a in theater film, if this is going to be like a streaming movie, you know, like an Amazon original type of film or whatever the case may be. But according to them, it's happening, y'all. It's happening. Sam says, oh yes, Voltron live action. Finally, it's been a long time. Ram Jam says a live action Voltron would be pretty cool. I'm surprised they haven't done one already. Yeah, me either, man. Me either. It's one of those things where I feel like Voltron, along with He-Man, have been trying to get off the ground for like years. And even though He-Man has had a movie in Masters of the Universe years ago, back in the 80s, I believe, or maybe early 90s, having a reboot of one live action has taken forever to get off the ground. But He-Man, Masters of the Universe, seems like it's coming along pretty well. Also, surprisingly, they've got Travis Knight attached to direct. I think we even talked about who they cast as their He-Man. So they got the writer, director, main actor on board. So He-Man is definitely pushing forward. And now that we've got word that Amazon MGM Studios is going to be doing a Voltron movie, according to the Jeff Snyder, it seemingly is going to be casting here within the next coming months. So we're going to be finding who's going to be our Hunk, our Pidge, our Lance, our Keith, Princess Aurora. So I'm really fascinated to kind of see how this is brought to the big screen, if it's brought to the big screen. Did you just find anything, Stuart?
Yeah, so I'm looking at their list, and it's mostly movies I honestly don't recognize. Mostly Amazon Prime original movies, but you know, a lot that do end up going to theaters. Oh, they did The Beekeeper, which came out this
that
year,
was a good
the
one.
Jason Statham one.
Yeah, that was a really good one.
Oh, and they did the Roadhouse remake.
Okay. So a couple of those things.
Okay. Die Hard with Kevin Hart, called Die Hard 2, Die Harder.
Oh no. So yeah, but it seems like some of those. Well, The Beekeeper, I think that was a big release in theaters. I think there's a part of me that thinks that
It was a January release, though.
Was it? But I heard good things about The Beekeeper, honestly. And then Roadhouse, I think, was just an Amazon release, right, on streaming. There's a part of me that hopes that this is a big release. I hope it's not just streaming, because I would like to see sort of like a space opera kind of adventure on the big screen. I think something like a big mechanical robot like Voltron seems quite worthy for the big screen. You know what I mean?
Oh, definitely. And like you kind of brought up at the beginning, I think if anything, the only thing that's going to happen, like after this movie comes out, or with the Power Rangers franchise is that I feel that like now any chance there was of like Power Rangers kind of having that second wave, on the big screen and having a really big hit with the audience, I feel like if this movie goes into theaters first, the momentum for Power Rangers is going to die down completely.
Yeah.
So that's the one unfortunate thing about it.
I would agree. I do think that this could really hit the Power Ranger franchise terribly, in the sense of like, you don't. I guess you wouldn't want to then be seen as like the copycat, like, oh, this is just Voltron, um, and have all that momentum behind something like Voltron if it's certainly successful. But I've always been a Voltron fan, so I hope it's successful. I want to see this story kind of brought to the big screen. Cindy, what's up, girl? My girlfriend in the house. Good to see you, Cindy. Thank you so much for certainly coming through, babe. Hope work is going well for you. But yeah, guys, let us know your thoughts. Hopefully some casting announcements here relatively soon in the next couple of months, as Voltron has in fact been greenlit. Would you prefer to see it on the big screen? Would you prefer to see it as a streaming service movie? Definitely go ahead and let me know your thoughts in the comment section box below.
And then robots, definitely the big screen for me.
It feels like it. It feels like it's got to be on the big screen, man, when it comes to giant robots. Next up, in our last topic of the day before we get into some live viewer questions, even though Cobra Kai has in fact dropped its sixth and final season, or at least I should say part one of its final season, with this show getting ready to go ahead and wrap up in 2025, there seems to be more brewing behind the scenes in regards to this Cobra Kai world. While we certainly may say farewell to some of the characters that we've come to know and love, there definitely may be more stories to certainly tell after Cobra Kai wraps up, as the creators of the series are speaking with the Hollywood Reporter this week and talking about potential spin-offs that could certainly come out of this. Most importantly, one maybe surrounding Mr. Miyagi. Stuart, have you had the opportunity to check out part one of Cobra Kai season 6 so far?
I have, and that's surprisingly why this news doesn't surprise me too much, because there's I don't want to spoil too much, but they do imply that there's a lot more to Mr. Miyagi's backstory that even Daniel didn't know about.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I do think this is a pretty fascinating article to kind of hint at the direction in which they actually might go. This is the Cobra Kai bosses want to give Mr. Miyagi his prequel story. And while I personally haven't necessarily seen the first part of this season of Cobra Kai, just from what I know of Mr. Miyagi, his past, I believe he was actually in the war. He's got some war stories for sure, some medals from past Karate Kid movies we've seen. I mean, really, Karate Kid 2 is sort of a look into the life of older Mr. Miyagi and glimpses into his past. And so the idea of what they could potentially be hinting at here in Cobra Kai would make a lot of sense, in the sense of really giving him a prequel story. It says 5-episode premiere initially appeared that there would be peace in the Valley of Los Angeles between Daniel LaRusso, Johnny Lawrence, and the various kids. But as events and rivals typically go in the world of high school angst with black belts, peace received a flying kick out of the dojo. But that simply meant more thrills to come. It says in the chat below, they shared insight into their creative world, what their creative world might look like after their successful series run. Let's see here. Where should we go from this one? So Miyagi was always supposed to be like the Daniel character of Cobra Kai. He says, definitely. By 1984, Daniel, just by virtue of having dark hair and being from New Jersey, was completely out of place in the fish out of water. In present day, we wanted to design a group of kids in high school that reflect what Los Angeles is now. It's just not a sea of blonde. It's a sea of everybody. And Miguel is one piece of that puzzle. But at the same time, we wanted to capture what we loved about a young Daniel, Johnny, Allie, which was falling in love with these teenage characters. And when creating the characters, yada yada yada. Where's the Mr. Miyagi stuff? Oh, there we go. See, the thing jumped on me again. So there's a lot to play with there. In reverse, Mr. Miyagi relationship, where Daniel had a lot to learn about where Okinawa was on the map. When did you start thinking about expanding on the background of Mr. Miyagi? I won't call it sinister, but he definitely appears to have a more violent backstory than sweet, quiet, loving man that we met 40 years ago. He says, from the beginning of this very series, we've liked the idea of exploring the Miyagi character from the perspective of Daniel LaRusso. The character of Mr. Miyagi has always been there every season of the show. So going into every season, we think about how do we bring those Miyagi vibes to that season? And going into this last season, we wanted to give Daniel LaRusso's character the ultimate conflict, which would challenge his thoughts about Mr. Miyagi. And we wanted to draw that from real life, where people view their parents or mentors as perfect people, or at least that they have this authority on their lives. And then you get older and you see your mentor as a human being and in a more three-dimensional way. Ain't that the truth, Stuart? As a man in his 40s, for me, I have always viewed my parents in a certain light. And I'm not going to get into my parents' business or anybody other parents' business, but as I get older, I don't know if our parents become more vulnerable and opening up to us about their own personal life challenges or what's going on in their own personal relationships with each other. But you come to find out that they really are not as perfect as we make them out to be. And that's not to villainize our parents in any sense of the imagination, but I think we come to learn their imperfections. We come to learn how much like ourselves we really are. And I think most importantly, how we as adults, as parents, how we literally are all just trying to live our life and learn from past mistakes or past achievements and trying to continue to grow as a person. And I can honestly say, as a 41-year-old, within the past maybe 5 or 6 years of my life, I've really come to see my parents in almost like a completely different life. Has that happened? Has that happened to you yet? In the sense of like, man, my parents aren't perfect. Not to say that makes them bad people, but like we're all literally still trying to figure it out through our entirety of our lives. No matter if you become 50, 60, 70 years old, there's always an aspect of our life that we're trying to learn and improve upon.
Yeah, like 100%. I think that's when you're young, I think like parents always like to put on kind of the illusion that like everything they say, like they know it all. They may not know everything, but they know everything they need to know. And that's kind of what you're left thinking at a young age. And so as you get older, you start to question some things, especially in high school when you become more rebellious. But yeah, now like as an adult, currently in my late 20s, almost 30 now, I'm just now kind of realizing that my parents didn't have it all figured out, and that's totally fine. Like, no one does. I think it's not just like parents, but like they says in the article, like adult figures as well. You look at them as people that have it all figured out, that are exactly where they wanted to be in life. And as you get older, you're like, oh no, we're all kind of like on that same boat of no one's really sure, what's right, what's wrong. We just go with what we've learned and we try to pass that on to other people and hope that, they'll pick up the right messages and that kind of stuff. So that all to be said, this happening with Mr. Miyagi, it makes total sense because we've never seen his full backstory. We've only gotten like hints that he like you said, that he fought in the war. We've gotten like idea, like he's told Daniel some personal moments, of course, but like as a whole, there's still like a big gap missing there. So you could definitely see those imperfections that we see like within the first 5 episodes, and it's very, very, I'm very curious where it all leads to.
It also says, yet putting Daniel through that kind of turmoil just felt like in keeping with what we've done every season, and gave us the kind of big finale we're ultimately looking for. The short answer is that as we got to thinking about season 6, it became the main central thing we wanted Daniel to kind of go through. There is a little bit more here too. I wanted to get towards the end where they kind of talk about the idea of the spinoff. Again, if you guys haven't had the opportunity to check out the series, please go ahead and do so. God damn it. Why does this happen?
Is it your mouse by any chance? If you try scrolling using the sidebar, will it
Yeah, let me
work
try
better?
that. Let me try that. Nope.
Oh no.
Nope. I'm like getting dizzy.
Did you try the arrow keys?
So there's room for spinoffs after Cobra Kai. He says, absolutely. We think about spinoffs with Cobra Kai all the time. Cobra Kai itself is, in a way, a spinoff of the Karate Kid. We took the bully from the Karate Kid. We took that branch and created out our own tree. And we feel like we could do that with any of the characters on the show. We definitely thought about that as we're tying things up with all the characters. We think about the fun of following them in the future. And in addition, we think about the past. It's one of the reasons why we did the Miyagi box story this season. It opens up all these questions about Mr. Miyagi and what his life was like. And that's been something we've been wanting to do for a while. We talked to Robert Mark Kamen, the writer of the original Karate Kid, who based his whole movie off his sensei, who studied Okinawa karate. We've been talking about all this Miyagi backstory with him, which helps us with season 6 stuff. Now that we're done, we actually start getting into this stuff. We just been focused on Cobra Kai and finishing it off. And right now we're in the process of editing the last couple episodes. Once that's done, we hopefully have some exciting things. And it says, oh, it sounds like we're talking about a Miyagi prequel here. And they say, I would say that we definitely want to do that. And we've been talking about that. But the focus is now on Cobra Kai as we're finishing that up. We'll see exactly what path we take in terms of spinoff. But it's definitely something that we've been wanting to do. So, Stuart, let me ask you the big question, man. Mr. Miyagi prequel series, would you want it? Avoid it? Or let's go ahead and dive into this world. What do you think, man?
Yeah, I'd say let's dive into the world. It's a show that if Netflix ends up not picking it up, I am not going to lose any sleep over it at all. But if it does actually get picked up, I will definitely 100% watch it. Especially if it's the same showrunners behind it, because they definitely know what they're doing. They know how to make characters that you can both relate to, you want to see succeed, but of course you know that they're going to hit some speed bumps on the way, and that's totally fine, because you know that at the end of the day, everyone in Cobra Kai is human. And I think that's what the show gets right more than anything, is when it comes to just character development, that kind of thing. And so I would love to see how they do that with a character like Mr. Miyagi, who may have an imperfect backstory, but then ends up kind of, that imperfect backstory is what kind of forms him into being the perfect mentor for Daniel.
Yeah, I think one of the takeaways that I have from this article, there is a sense sometimes that I think for some characters, I don't think we always necessarily need to know everything explained about people's past, right? Like there are some just characters in pop culture that are great being the mystery that they are, and not knowing so much about what they went through, what their prequel is like. Not everybody needs their backstory told. But I will say, I do think in regards to Mr. Miyagi, I kind of want to see it. I kind of want to see it. And it's something that you said, Stuart, about the Cobra, if it's done by the same Cobra Kai showrunners, I think that they will do justice by it. And it's one that I definitely would like to see, because you're right. They have made a lot of these characters human and easily relatable. And I think that's why this series, six seasons in, continues to do as well as it does, because they know how to capture not just the essence of the Karate Kid, but the essence of who these characters are and the teachings of Mr. Miyagi and how it's impacted a lot of these characters' sort of lives. And so I do appreciate them doing the work of going out and finding the writer of the first Karate Kid movie and picking his brain and learning more about where the origins of Mr. Miyagi come from, and being inspired from the writer's sensei who did Okinawa karate. The fact that they're doing that sort of level of research and learning about Mr. Miyagi's character is just so fascinating to me, because I know that with that knowledge that they've acquired, these guys would be able to write a very compelling story. And I think about that, and I think about the Karate Kid 2. And I think about Mr. Miyagi revisiting Okinawa and him having to deal with like his own struggles from his past that kind of come back, his the love that he lost, or that he stepped away from, that he tries to rekindle in Karate Kid 2. Like there's a whole romance aspect of Mr. Miyagi's life that we haven't really even tapped into, of him being at a younger age, the rivalry that he winds up that gets established at a younger age for Miyagi, that holds that animosity towards him when he comes back to Okinawa in Karate Kid 2. His war medals. Can we get some really cool war flashback sequences, right? Like, I think the Miyagi character is just so fascinating, and they've already layered him in such a great way from the Karate Kid movies, and now doing such a great job with his impact and his presence in Cobra Kai. And having all those people still being influenced by him and knowing his teachings. Hell yeah, I would love to see a Mr. Miyagi prequel series, because I do think that there's just a rich character that they can really dive and sink their teeth into and kind of explore a little bit more about it. Do I need 6 seasons of a Miyagi series? that I don't know, but it would be a story I would be completely open to. If that's the route that they wanted to go, because I think that they've to me, the Cobra Kai showrunners have certainly earned that opportunity to tell his story specifically, if they certainly wanted to. I just think they've done a beautiful job with this series overall, that I would be completely open to this for sure.
Same.
But let us know your thoughts, guys. What would you guys like to see in regards to a spinoff from Cobra Kai? Any other characters you would like to see them do a spinoff from? Are you cool with the Mr. Miyagi sort of prequel series? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section box below, ladies and gentlemen. And with that out of the way, Stuart, that will wrap up all of our main topics today. I know I only have you for a short period of time for right now, so let's try and get through as many live viewer questions as we can while I got you here, and then we'll say farewell. I know you got to dip out relatively early here, so let's go ahead and get into our next segment of the day.
Now, everybody, it is time for live viewer questions.
So if you want to go ahead and submit a live viewer question, all you got to do is go over to our main YouTube page, as you see here. And every Saturday, we'll go ahead and drop a live viewer question post. Click on this community tab right here. And voila, live viewer questions, as we have this set up for you guys. So let's get into some of these questions today, shall we? With that, I'm going to go ahead and turn on our music. And let this kick in here.
Can't hear you yet.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Sam, he says, I would like to see a Mike Barnes and Chosen spinoff and see flashback Barnes as a kid and his past story. That's interesting. I wouldn't mind. Chosen would be a good one, but I would say Chosen would probably be in the Mr. Miyagi prequel series.
Yeah.
Would he? No,
he'd be too young.
He'd way too young. Yeah, he'd be like a blip in his parents' eye. But yeah, because he is a teenager when we see him in Karate Kid 2. That's really a Daniel story more than it is a Mr. Miyagi story. So I would be open for a Chosen spinoff. Especially, I would be interested to see what happens to the events of him after the battle to the death in Karate Kid 2. Honestly,
yeah.
Live or die, man. He honks his nose. I love Karate Kid 2 is like my favorite. It's definitely my favorite of the Karate Kid movies. Let's see here. Coming in first, Marcelino. Cure Ranger never got adapted because the idea of 12 Rangers is too complicated to give each of them equal development. However, I've heard one suggestion by fans to help work around that problem, and that's to embrace the idea that you're not going to give them all equal development. Basically, what this means is that 6 of the Rangers are the center focus of the series and are the ones who receive the most development, while the 6 others are more fun side characters with fun personalities who don't receive a lot of development. I always find them fun to be around. I think The Office, for example, it's an ensemble cast, but the main focus is Mike, Jim, Pam, and Dwight, while everyone is a side character with colorful personalities. Sure, sometimes these characters will at times get development and even their own focus episode, but for the most part, they are just side characters with fun personalities that help to enhance the main character, but don't overtake them, and they stay in their lane. Do you think this could be doable? What do you think, Stu?
I think both could be doable. Like you could do it that way, or you could do it with 12 characters, having somewhat of development and getting their all of them getting their own arcs. I think when Simon Bennett made that tweet saying that Q Ranger wouldn't work as an adaptation because of the many characters, I think he was referring to Cosmic Fury when he said that, because Cosmic Fury only had 10 episodes. I think that if it was a 2-season show, then yeah, I don't think they would have had any problems dealing with 12 different characters. I think people just take that quote that was meant for Cosmic Fury and then they act like that's just him being lazy, but I don't think that. But yeah, I do think either way could work if you have the right writers behind it.
Yeah, I think for me, it all comes down to who the writers are going to be. Are they used to working in ensemble cast? If we had more episodes per season, kind of going back to classic Nickelodeon days, then maybe you could probably pull it off. I do see a sitcom like The Office and a Power Rangers show as 2 completely different shows. So, I don't necessarily know if just them being side characters and staying in their lane would be sufficient enough for a Power Ranger film or Power Ranger series. I personally would like more character development instead of just being like, and they don't all have to be funny sort of side characters, but 1, longer episodes, 2, better writers that know how to do ensemble casts, to know how to balance their time out properly, and really formulate their episodes to kind of give everybody a fair share. So if we were to do something like that, then yes. But as far as like, let's just focus on 6 and then the others we're not going to focus on so much. For me, I don't know if it will work that way, but that's just me. Stuart clearly feels a little bit different, but I would agree with Stuart in the sense of you need a great writer and certainly more episodes for sure. What are your thoughts on the lightsaber fights in the sequel trilogy? I was under the impression that the lightsaber fights in the trilogy were praised as some of the best and beating out the prequels. Even if people didn't like the sequels, I thought the one thing that haters and fans could agree on was the fight scenes were some of the best in the series. I even heard people say that the fight between Kylo Ren and the Praetorian guards was the best fight in the series. It may not be a lightsaber fight, but in terms of fight choreography, it was the best. But now I hear people say that the fights in the sequel trilogy were never good, and that the TV shows showcased how you properly do fights in Star Wars. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I don't think the fights in the sequel trilogy were ever mind blowing, but they were fun. Especially that fight that you referred to with Kylo Ren and Rey taking down the Praetorian guards. Like, I absolutely love that battle. And then the many times that you get Rey and Kylo Ren facing off, those are always great. And I think my favorite though still goes to the fight between Kylo Ren and Luke's forced projection. I still think that is probably my favorite lightsaber battle in the entire my favorite lightsaber battle of the sequel trilogy.
Do I think that they're the best in the series? No, I don't think they're the best in the series, but I do like the prequel fights. Force Awakens, I think you've Kylo against Rey in the snow forest. I think from a visual standpoint, it's brutal. Like it's really pleasing to the eyes, but it's just a very brutal, hard-fought battle. You got a Kylo Ren that's battered and bruised, trying to go up against Ren that's Rey that's really like tapping into her Force abilities and stuff. I mean, I was a big fan of the Force Awakens battle. The Kylo Ren and Rey Praetorian guards, the more and more I watch that, I come to appreciate it a little bit more. I think when I first watched it in theaters, I thought it was cool and neat and refreshing, but I think it continues to grow on me from the fight choreography standpoint and what they were able to do in that sense. So yeah, I definitely agree with you there. And then even the lightsaber battle again between Kylo and Rey at the fallen Death Star in the middle of the ocean, like visually it's stunning. Like they're just going back and forth and back and forth. The wire work of the long distance jumps and stuff, and the emotion behind it a little bit. So I do think each sequel movie has legit fight sequences. I don't necessarily think that they're the best of the series, but they're really fun, and I think they're handled really well. As far as like the idea of the show showcasing how you probably do fights in Star Wars, I do think it's important to realize, and this is something that George Lucas kind of talked about, we are in two completely different time periods here. When you look at the prequels series, you're in the High Republic era where the Jedi train on a daily basis to know several different sort of fighting techniques, and you see that beautifully in the Acolyte. I mean, Master Soul himself probably goes to like 2 or 3 different fighting stances throughout that whole entire series, right? So, and then you look at something like the prequel series, which really comes out of where does Rey learn her fight sequence, her fighting ability from? She picks that stuff up from Luke Skywalker and whatever abilities that she has sort of with her own bow staff. So by the time we get to something like The Force Awakens, those Jedi trainings are significantly different, which is why the battles in something like the original trilogy are significantly different from that of the prequels. It's just sort of a very lost art, right? So you have to kind of then build your fighting stances and fighting techniques in the sequels to be vastly different from what we've kind of seen before. So they're all going to hit a little bit different, but what works in lightsaber battles, and I think a lot of people will say this, is it's story and it's emotion. Like what's at stake in these battles. And I do think when I look at something like the prequel, the Acolyte, I think Quamir and Soul, especially their battles in general, are just on such a high standard, just because of not just the great choreography that you can see showcased in it, but I think it's Leslie Headland's great influence of tapping into several different martial arts techniques, samurai influence films, and kind of merging them all into one, on top of, despite maybe some people not necessarily caring about the story for the Acolyte or feeling like maybe the execution wasn't there, I think the execution for the story for Soul and Quamir were some of the best handled in that series. So when those two end up colliding, it feels like it's just a great coming together of a little bit of everything, and to me it really just sort of blew me away better than anything that I had personally seen in the sequel trilogy. And not to say that those aren't great battles, but the Acolyte battles just hit differently for me than what I saw in the sequel trilogy. But I think each sequel movie has great battles for sure. I'm sorry, that was probably a long-winded
No, you bring up like the most important point, which is the fact that sometimes like it's not about the fight choreography itself, it's also about like the emotion and the story behind it, and I fully agree with that.
Yeah, he says, however, I do feel like people changed their tunes and say that those fights were never good to begin with. I mean, I'm definitely sure you probably have some people that are like that for sure, Marcelino. I'm just not one of them. I have praised them since I thought some of the ones that we had in the sequels were really good, and I still think so to this day. But yeah, I just now that I've seen the Acolyte, it just holds a higher place for me right now. But yeah, definitely not changing my view on that. When it comes to Marvel's Runaway, the way the series ends feels like a cliffhanger, setting up for more seasons to come, but was abruptly canceled. However, when I read interviews about the final season, the production team said that it ended, not that it was canceled, meaning the writers wanted it to end the way that it did. So the open-ended ending where the plot lines were never resolved was on purpose. So what are your thoughts, and how do you make sense of all that? Have you seen any of the Runaways, Stuart?
I saw season 1, never saw season 2 or 3, but if I had to guess, I would assume the writers wanted to do more, but the producers didn't, or just, they didn't want to make Kevin Feige look like the bad guy for canceling all the Marvel TV shows when that's exactly what he did. So they wanted it to come off as, oh no, we're ending all the Marvel TV shows. What's that one show that went to Hulu? It was like it was like Hell something. God, I don't even remember, but it was basically the
Hell, not Hellraiser.
It's like the Marvel
Cobra, yeah.
Constantine, basically, is the best way to put it. But it was like, that show, when it was announced, it was like, yes, this is going to be what sets off a Ghost Rider spinoff show. And then we're hoping this show gets multiple seasons. And then when it gets canceled, it's like you had a complete change of tone where it was like, oh, no, we only meant for this to be a one and done. We never wanted to continue it going forward. Oh, and it was never meant to tie into the MCU. It was always meant to be standalone.
Was it Hellstrom?
Yeah, I think so.
Hellstrom? Yeah, I think Hellstrom was the name of this show. Yeah. Yeah, and for me, I think my thing would be, I think they would if anything, the show was definitely canceled, but I do wonder if it's a case of they knew well enough in advance that when it comes to writing the third season, maybe they intended it to write it the way that they did, knowing that even though this was going to be the end of it all, maybe still leaving some cliffhangers open. I don't know. I never saw the third season, but maybe it's a case of the show was canceled and the writers had that decision or knew of that decision well in advance to write season 3 however they certainly wanted to. But I'll have to look a little bit more into that, Marcelino.
I think what annoyed me with Runaways, the TV show, and it's just what happens when you have a TV format, like they have to make these kind of changes, is like you look at the Runaways comic books, the very first issue, they find out that their parents are supervillains, they leave. Season 1 of Runaways, they find out their parents are supervillains. It takes them 10 episodes to go, maybe we should run away, guys.
He does say, I do recommend Runaways. It's basically Naomi done right. I heard great things for the first season for sure. It's one of the reasons why I wanted to check it out. Never got a chance to, but I did hear great things about Runaways, and I've heard just great things about the comic book series as a whole too. Jessica Friedman, when do you think we'll see Power Rangers return to our screens? Maybe 2028 at this point. I have no idea. And would you like to see an Avatar series starring Aang and Katana's kids and the kids of the rest of the OG team Avatar? Aren't we getting adult Aang something? I don't know if that's in line with this though.
We are. So would you want I guess like if the question is like whether or not we'd see like their kids in like the same age they were when during the events of Avatar, like that would actually be kind of cool to see. Because you get some hints about the sibling dynamic, but you never get like a full flashback of what it was like. The only thing you do know is they imply Aang was not the best dad, not because he wasn't like a caring dad, he definitely was, but he also was a dad that unintentionally played favoritism towards his airbending child and kind of neglected his waterbending and his non-bending child. So that would be something kind of interesting to see.
As far as when do we want to see Power Rangers return or when do you think we'll see Power Rangers return? I have no idea, Jessica, at this point. They're shopping around the series. Hasbro is to other streaming services. Netflix turned them down because their new idea is definitely not what Netflix wanted whatsoever. And so now it's a case of, will somebody pick this up? I think Stuart and I are definitely under the impression that they're pitching a terrible idea in order just to eventually sell the rights off to somebody else, hoping that nobody kind of picks it up. So who knows when development on anything will begin. That's why I said something ridiculous like 2028, but who knows?
I think realistically, the fastest we'll see Power Rangers is if Amazon were the ones that bought it, because I think they would actually put it to good use like immediately.
Yeah, I think so too. But look, they're doing Voltron now, or at least their MGM Studios is. So we'll see.
That is true.
Peg C, do you think Power Rangers should do Super Sentai adaptions, but in anime form? Ooh.
I don't know if you're going in anime form. I personally wouldn't want to see them adapt Super Sentai. I would want to see them either use Rangers that have already been established or completely original Rangers.
Yeah, I think I'm at the point where if you're going to do anything in animated form, I think it should highlight the actual character. It should actually highlight the Power Rangers. Like, just do original content if that's the case. So that's probably where I would land on that. In season 2 of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers part 3-part episode, The Mutiny, Alpha 5 said that Tommy could not pilot the new Zord. It got me thinking, what Zord would Tommy have piloted? In season 2 of MMPR 3-part episode, The Mutiny, Alpha 5 said that Tommy could not pilot a new Zord. It got me thinking, what Zord would Tommy have piloted?
So like if he I'm trying to remember, because at that point he was in season 2, he was the White Ranger and he had the Falcon Zord, right?
Yeah, or is this maybe before he got his abilities? Like his
that's right. That's right. He didn't get his abilities back until season 2. Hang on. I gotta look this up because timeline wise I can't remember when this happens.
I'll move on while you look that up. What were your thoughts on the original 1996 Space Jam movie with Michael Jordan? A great soundtrack, which unfortunately some songs I can't listen to anymore. Thanks a lot, R. Kelly. But I enjoyed it. I remember enjoying it as a kid, and the Monstars, I believe that they were called and stuff. I kind of dug the animation. It was kind of a fun. I was a big Looney Tune head back in the day, at least in 1996. Not the best performances. I love Bill Murray's addition to that movie.
Dun, 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 dun. I didn't know Dan Aykroyd was in this movie.
I enjoyed the first Space Jam. I really did for what it was. But yeah.
All right, so before I get into the Space Jam bit, okay, so yeah, I just realized it's the 3-parter that opened season 2. So he wouldn't have had his Power Ranger powers. So I don't know what Zord he would have flown. Like, I want to say the Dragon one, just because, he already had the Dragon Zord before. So of course, I think, he would have probably piloted the Red Dragon Zord, and it would have probably like turned green as soon as he got into the cockpit or something. That would have been cool. But yeah, that's how I see it. But to the Space Jam thing, yes. So as a kid, I loved Looney Tunes. So I don't remember if my love for Looney Tunes came after Space Jam or if my love for Looney Tunes led me to watching Space Jam. I don't remember how that happened, but I do know that I watched Space Jam so many times as a kid. But if I'm pretty sure I still have the VHS copy. But if you were to put it in a VCR, it would be incredibly scratchy and just be almost like unwatchable because of how many times I've replayed that movie. One of those movies I could probably I quote so much from it. Great movie. I absolutely loved it. I thought the sequel was all right. Didn't love it, but I thought it was all right.
Would you want to see the Mirage Turtles get their own animated TV show? Mirage Turtles.
That sounds familiar. I'm assuming they were like looking them up now. Those are okay. That's just a title given to the original Ninja Turtles. Yeah, like
absolutely.
Adaptation of like the OG comic book. Yes. Oh my God, dude. Like if you were to do that, that would blow some people away because not a lot of people know how violent like the original run of the Ninja Turtles was. I mean, they kill Shredder with a freaking grenade, man, in the first issue. So imagine like you're watching a new Ninja Turtle show. You're assuming Shredder's meant to be the main villain, and he gets killed off in the first episode from a grenade.
Yeah, I'm all aboard that, man. I'm all aboard that for sure. Doomsday Do you think it's ridiculous how people seem to let their hatred of CW's Iris and the Flash blind them to what is actually going on? People make absurd jokes about how Eddie Thawne committed suicide since he was with Iris when he actually gave his life to save Barry, since Eobard Thawne, aka the Reverse Flash, was his ancestor. And when Iris said, "We are the Flash" to Barry, people took that phrase literally and assumed that she literally meant that she and him are both the Flash, when in reality she's basically telling Barry that they're in this together and it's not just him. People say he committed suicide? What
the heck?
Is that a joke? Make absurd jokes. Okay, yeah, that how Eddie committed suicide since he was with Iris. God, that's brutal, bro.
That is. Yeah, no, I mean, I can see like in the later seasons why people didn't like her character as much, because it just felt like the writers didn't know what to do with her, which is funny because they had a great setup for her, and then it was just like that's what I hated in the second half of season 6 is you had a great setup for her character, and then you're just like, oh, and then she gets kidnapped for 20 episodes. So so they don't get to do anything with that setup. It's so frustrating. But you know, that being said, yeah, it's kind of ridiculous if people unironically look at the Flash in that exact way. If they look at her saying "we are the Flash" because she's trying to take the spotlight away from Barry, and if they look at that scene where it's you know, Eddie Thawne doing a heroic sacrifice as him being like, "Oh, I can't stand Iris," it's like if you're unironically looking at it that way, I don't know. I guess the Flash is too sophisticated for you, which is really, really sad.
Yeah, for sure. Is this where you got to go, Stu, or?
I think I can finish up these 2 questions.
Okay, if you're up for the challenge, then name at least one good thing about Ninja Steel, the Ninja Steel opening. Oh, I thought I didn't read the end of it.
About the Ninja Steel opening.
Like the title sequence. I don't know. My first thought was just Sarah.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I can think of. You know, I didn't mind the storyline of them trying to find his dad going missing. I kind of like the storyline. I just didn't like the storyline of they found him and now you don't see him at all for season 2. Like, bro, you're still missing. Like, you're still gone. Like, you're not even around anymore. Like, they literally spent a whole entire season finding you. You can't even be a supporting character on the show on a regular basis. So yeah, that always kind of bewildered me. But I did like the storyline and Sarah. Yeah.
I liked the episode Levi got his memory back, and I liked the crossover episode. Those are my 2 compliments for Ninja Steel.
Did you hear about what happened with Hector David Jr. from Power Rangers Samurai? Yeah, his ass is a wanted criminal right now. I don't know. Are they still looking for his ass? Did they ever get him to bring himself into the authorities?
No idea. What do you think the chances are Dog the Bounty Hunter goes after him? Dog the Bounty Hunter versus the Green Samurai Ranger.
What a crossover event that would be. But yeah, I did hear about it. It's pretty terrible, man. I definitely, like, some people at first were like, how do you know it's him? How do you know it's him? I'm like, bro, that's totally him. Like, I mean, just the visual, like the picture they showcased of him looks just like him. I know that dude's walk from anywhere. Like, if you watch the camera footage of him walking up to the old man or the old person and just pushing him over, like, it's just atrocious, dude. And you know, Hector, I don't know Hector personally. I remember I met him once back in 2014 at Power Morphicon, and the dude was drunk. Okay, drunk, walking around the hotel lobby, interacting with fans and stuff. We took a great drunken picture together. But that's like my own personal experience. But there's always been something about Hector that kind of is, from interviews that I've seen him in, like a young arrogance about him. You know, I don't know how he's changed over the years, if he's gotten more full of himself, if he feels like he's like the shit sort of thing. But there's always been like an arrogant take anytime that I've seen him in front of the camera, or his personality, or in interviews that have kind of rubbed me that way. So I can't sit here and say like this surprises me. But it certainly still does surprise me. I mean, who pushes over an elderly person? You know what I'm saying? To know that he's got that level of temper. So yeah, it's just kind of just sad, bro. Just sad.
Yeah, I agree. It's you know, we got to remember that, like, you know, with celebrities, you know, even the ones that like some people will look up to, that they're still people, and therefore, you know, you have the goods and the bads as well. So it's unfortunate, because I know that there were probably a lot of kids that really looked up to him. So for this to kind of like happen, but I do have to get going, unfortunately.
Yeah, no
but I
problem.
will definitely see all of you amazing people next week.
Yeah, man. We'll probably do a heavy D23 breakdown, but I'll reach out to you after the show and later on this week and talk more about it.
Sounds good.
All right, appreciate it, Stuart. Thanks, buddy.
No problem. Thank you. Bye.
Have a good one, man. All right, let's go ahead and continue this. Me, AJ loves bacon. AJ coming through with the consistency these days, bro. Thank you so much. In Beast Morphers, we know that Grid Battle Force has a secret vault filled with old weapons and morphers from past Power Ranger seasons. While the show never acknowledged how Grid Battle Force got them, it's very possible that Billy Cranston himself managed to access the Rangers' archives through Tommy and his colleagues and tech genius Haley. Considering Billy is now a CEO of Cranston Technologies, he was able to access the Rangers archives with the help of Tommy and Haley when he learned that Grid Battle Force was being established and studied the morphing grid to create their own team of Power Rangers to fight a future enemy threat. So it's indeed possible that Billy, with his connections to Tommy and Haley, was able to access the Rangers archives and acquire the old weapons and morphers. As the CEO of Cranston Technologies, Billy would have had resources and expertise to help Grid Battle Force develop their own team of Power Rangers. It's also a good point that Billy would have been motivated to take action once he learned that Grid Battle Force plans to study the morphing grid and create their own team. As a former Ranger himself, Billy would have wanted to ensure that any new team was equipped with the best possible tools and technology to face future threats. I think if anything I walked away from, I definitely feel like that's a huge possibility that Billy certainly had a hand in that. Do I think he might have been the only person? No, probably not. And I just say that because of the fact that the Beast Morphers do make contact with Dr. K also. I can't remember if it felt like they had established levels of communication with Dr. K before. So maybe they have had previously worked together. It's been a while since I've had seen Beast Morphers, so I can't really recall. So it wouldn't surprise me if they have abilities to reach out to other people like a Dr. K. Who's to say that Dr. K didn't also help provide them with this stuff? Who's to say that, Grid Battle Force hadn't reached out to other mentors or other scientists from past Power Ranger teams to acquire that type of stuff also? So I do think Billy certainly had maybe a big, heavy hand in that, AJ, for sure. But I do think they probably had other people as well throughout various seasons of Power Rangers to go ahead and help them fill up that vault. Blossom, I know that you're not using Super Sentai for Power Rangers anymore, but still, I can't believe it's the end of an era. Still, though, with all the Sentai still being made, I be sure to give those Rangers a home. I would be interested to see what you would do something with like the Dawn brothers for sure. You remember how each morpher is unique in both the Rangers and Sentai worlds? Wouldn't it be cool if the morphers were made specifically attuned for each Ranger's personalities? I meant that they're all shaped differently depending on Rangers' personalities. When I watched the last couple episodes of Boon Boomger, one of the things I was fascinated with was how Officer Joe's along with Genba, their morphers, when they activate them, have like a much more attitude to them, much more like a guttural noise, like a much more aggressive tone compared to the original 3 Rangers that we wind up having, right? So it does feel like the morphers themselves almost have their own level of personality. So to me, I kind of dig that idea of a morpher being attuned specifically to a Ranger's personality. Now, you say I meant that they're all shaped differently depending on the Ranger's personality, but I would almost not just necessarily shaped, but I would like their morphers to sort of sound sort of like their personalities in tune with the Rangers themselves whenever they're kind of activated, instead of them all having sort of that uniform sound. And look, I would even be cool with the idea of like their morphers as we get into future Super Sentai series. I don't know if they've done this before or not, or if they have and I just don't remember, but the morphers to have some level of like AI technology, that each member being able to access their morpher to do other things. I think of it like an iPhone or like a tablet, in the sense of not only can you utilize it to look up, like to morph, but you can also use it to actually acknowledge and talk back to it, kind of like the Saba sword for the White Ranger, but like be able to literally interact with your morpher to a certain extent, and have it respond to you in its own kind of personality. I guess that's kind of similar to that of like the jewels from Pure Ranger, right? Like they all had their own personality, and they could talk to their own ranger partner. I would like to see that in the form of a morpher, just more on the technology side of things in regards to AI. I think something like that would be really cool. Sam, would you like to see Ultraman adapt? Which season? Probably one of the more recent ones that they did. What was the Ultraman series that I did a review for? I thought that was actually pretty good, just due to the special effects. Whenever they started simulcasting, like Ultraman Z, I believe it was. Like when they started simulcasting Ultraman series, live action series, to YouTube, and with English subtitles so you can watch along. Whenever they started doing that, start from that season and go forward, so we have a more modern take of an Ultraman adapted season. But I don't know which one in particular, but any of those seasons from when they started simulcasting onto YouTube. What if Power Rangers season 5 Rangers swap colors, like Zach as red, Jason as blue, Billy as black, Trini as pink, and Kimberly as yellow? That'd be pretty cool. I'd be down for that. That kind of reminds me of Tokuger a little bit, with the different train lines and each of the Rangers being able to utilize other colors for a brief period of time. Would you like to see Marvel character Kazar, Kevin Plunder in live action series? But which actor would you also like to see play him? That character is so out of the box. I would absolutely love that. Yeah, I think they could. 'Cause doesn't he have a big saber-toothed tiger as well? There were a couple of Kazar the Savage comics that I used to collect for a brief period of time. I believe the artist on it was Andy Kubert, and he really just brought that character to life for me. This would give them the opportunity to give us a live action Savage Land. Let me see, Savage Land villains, because I think there are a couple of really great ones that they can dive into too. There's like a pterodactyl that I'm drawing a blank on off the top of my head. Maybe you can even get some Kraven the Hunter vibes in there. Maybe some mutant appearances. Kazar, it always reminded me of that of like Tarzan. So a live action Marvel television series for Kazar in the Savage Land, I'm completely on board with that. I would absolutely love something like that. It would feel very lost in time. You can really, dive into that sort of theme, if you will. But yeah, I think you're onto something, Sam. It would be just out of the box, to where you don't have to necessarily worry about it connecting with other television series or the bigger MCU, if you will. But it really, like, that's almost something that like I would have loved to have seen before Marvel Studios and Kevin Feige decided to cancel all of their past shows and just focus on MCU heavy stuff, because now it feels like Marvel is like, wait a minute, maybe this was a mistake. Like, maybe we should really look forward to making Marvel television shows not be so heavily dependent on the MCU. And if they're getting back into that bag, give me Kazar, Sam. I think that's one of the better suggestions for Marvel's television series I've seen and heard in a long time. Also, Power Rangers Rail Riders final episode 5 teaser is out, and it's going to be awesome. I'll have to check that one out. Thank you, Sam. And then last but not least, the most talented man in the world is here. Superman and Lois versus Man of Steel. Oh man, I don't know how I'm gonna feel about this, man. Many fans think that Superman and Lois series did justice to the Superman legacy, unlike the Man of Steel filming with Henry Cavill. A common sentiment among fans. The Superman and Lois series received widespread acclaim for its thoughtful and nuanced approach to the Superman legacy. Many fans felt that it had done a proper justice to Man of Steel. Superman and Lois focused on Clark Kent's personal life, relationship, and values, making him more relatable and a human character. In contrast, Man of Steel was criticized for its dark and brooding tone, which some felt it didn't align with Superman's traditional character. The series explored with Kent's family relationship, showcasing Clark's love for Lois and his sons Jonathan and Jordan. This emphasis on family resonated with fans and added depth to the Superman mythos. Superman and Lois drew inspiration from the classic Smallville series, which many fans still held dear. This nod to the past helped create a sense of continuity and authenticity. The show embodied the hope and optimism that Superman represents. Man of Steel, on the other hand, was criticized for its grim and destructive portrayal of Superman battles. Tyler Hoechlin's warm and engaging performance as Clark Kent Superman won over fans who appreciated his nuance and compassionate take on the character since after Crisis on Infinite Earths. Overall, Superman and Lois have struck a chord with fans by staying true to the spirit of Superman while offering a fresh and modern interpretation. I can't argue with anything that you said there, most talented man in the world. In fact, I would like to commend you on just how you put that whole entire paragraph together. I think you just did a really great job of emphasizing the differences between them and in a really sort of remarkable way of how you used your words there. So I really appreciate you putting together this paragraph here. And in short, look, I can't disagree with you. And this is coming from a man that loves Man of Steel. I truly do. And despite the idea that I have not finished a lot of Superman and Lois, I do think the Superman and Lois series does something to Superman legacy that I don't necessarily know if even Man of Steel was able to do. I do think off of something like as grim and dark of what Zack Snyder was able to put together, I do think Superman and Lois was certainly a breath of fresh air for a lot of people who kind of appreciated that American sort of truth justice and the American way, that sort of ultimate Boy Scout of a character. And then on top of that, you add him later in his career where he is a family man and his personality is significantly different. That does speak true to a lot of superhero fans and people that were fans of Superman in general. So I think every sentiment that you've mentioned in here was really well explained in regards to why fans love this show and find it as a better representation for Superman than Man of Steel. So I completely agree with you there. I still will defend Man of Steel in the sense that, one, I do think that it is a movie that continues to get better and better each and every time. And there are times when I don't necessarily like comparing Supermen to each other, and I say that in a sense of like, Superman and Lois and the Superman movie Man of Steel are two different periods in Superman's life. Man of Steel very much is the case of somebody who literally becomes Superman in like a day, and has to deal with this level of responsibility that his dad has kind of had to get him ready for. And what we see in Superman Man of Steel is very much a Man of Steel that's a novice, a beginner, still utilizing his abilities, still learning the ways of having to protect life and make some really difficult decisions in regards to, especially one in him killing Zod at the end of Man of Steel that some people weren't a big fan of. But I personally loved it, and I loved it because of Henry Cavill's emotional reaction to his own actions, knowing that he was wrong, knowing that he killed one of the last survivors of Krypton, his own people, and probably realizing that it didn't have to come to this. And I think when he yells out and he's consoled by Lois Lane, I think that's the turning point and the moment of Superman as Clark Kent realizing I've got to do things completely differently kind of going forward. And I still find it a shame that Zack Snyder never got to do a Man of Steel, because I do believe his overall arc for Superman was to eventually get us to that American Boy Scout that I think we all can resonate and sort of relate to when it comes to the Superman that we all kind of know and love. Zack Snyder just went a completely different direction in trying to get us to that point. And so when we do see something like a Superman and Lois series, who's to say that the Tyler Hoechlin Superman that we see doesn't have the same personality traits and stuff like that that we see in something like a Superman Man of Steel? Like it easily could be, although to Superman and Lois's benefit, they did give us a great show of a flashback sequence of him with really a completely different past, right? But the point that I'm making is that Man of Steel that we see in the Zack Snyder movie could eventually go on to have the personality traits and be the family man that we see Tyler Hoechlin's Superman eventually get to, right? But the Superman and Lois clearly is very much different, right? Seeing him in the classic Action Comics suit, which is still one of my favorite Superman adapted live action comic book suits. And he's like, who made your suit? My mom made it, you know, and he shoots up in the air sort of thing, right? So definitely a different approach to his origin story. But I don't think Zack Snyder is wrong in how he approached it. He just had a different vision for the character. And I think having different visions and taking characters to places that they hadn't been before sometimes is risky. It could be very rewarding. It can hurt. It can hurt at the end of the day. But I don't think there's one true and right way to only create some of our favorite franchise characters that we've seen before. People just resonate to one certainly more than the other. And I would say I do think that Superman and Lois definitely received widespread acclaim for its thoughtfulness and nuanced approach, as you mentioned, to the Superman legacy that really benefited it more than that of, say, the Man of Steel. But I still will say to this day, one of my favorite moments from Man of Steel is that first flight with that Hans Zimmer score that still gives me goosebumps and chills to this day. Just cinematically on the big screen, it's just unlike anything that I've ever really seen. But each movie is certainly, each representation of Superman is certainly different, but Superman and Lois absolutely nails it if that's the type of Superman that you're certainly looking forward to. So I got no qualms with people that absolutely love that that version of Superman over Man of Steel at all. To each their own, for sure. But you make some great points. But that will do it for all of our live viewer questions today. I'm just going to go ahead and refresh this to make sure that I didn't miss anything. But I do believe I got everybody's comments and questions. So thank you for everybody that definitely participated in today's show. Always coming through, man, and always making for a really great and fun episode, to certainly say the least. So thank you so much, guys. And remember, every Saturday, we'll go ahead and post live viewer questions. So always check out our community tab on our YouTube channel every Saturday if you're fascinated or interested in dropping a question for us to comment on. But other than that, I think that's probably going to do it for us here, man. Yes, Batman Cape Crusader series review probably dropping later on this weekend. I'm going to try and talk with Stuart and our WrestleManiacs podcast host, Josh Porosky, and see if maybe we can do a 2 or 3 man series review for Batman Cape Crusader sometime later in the week. So stay tuned for that. I definitely need to speak with Stuart and see if he still plans on doing his season 2 review for My Adventures of Superman. And then we've got D23 set to go ahead and begin this upcoming Friday. So you could probably expect big news from Lucasfilm, big news from Marvel Studios, maybe even Pixar. Some upcoming movies and television announcements. So if anything, beginning that Thursday into the weekend, you may see some individual videos from us, maybe nightly recaps of what D23 kind of talked about that day. And then maybe a big recap for you guys on Sunday for a live episode of APlus Hero Reports. Maybe a Deadpool and Wolverine spoiler review this week, and then any other reviews for like trailers or big news topics that might wind up dropping, along with some YouTube shorts for you guys as well. So always with some fresh content for you guys on a weekly basis. And then, of course, if you guys are big wrestling fans, we do have WrestleManiacs podcast for Raw, SmackDown, Raw review, SmackDown review, and NXT review coming from Josh this week as well. So tons of content for you guys here on Hero Report. So if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, hit that subscribe button, guys, and a bell notification. So anytime we drop a brand new video, you'll certainly be notified. If you want to follow us on social media, right here at APlus Opinions everywhere on social media. Definitely our main page being here, the YouTube channel. Secondly, I always recommend our Facebook page where we drop news all throughout the week, movie trailers, brand new posters, exclusive first looks, and then usually at the end of the week, that's where we pull our 6 topics to talk about with you guys here. So great sources of information. We're also on TikTok at Hero Report. And if you like your Discord forum communities, we do have a Discord forum. There is a link in the description box below if you'd like to go ahead and join our Discord. But that will do it for us here, guys. We'll certainly be back later on this weekend and throughout the rest of the week. So until then, do me a big favor, as always, guys. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and keep it A+. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.